Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Salvatore Pinizzotto. I am the Secretary General at the International Rubber Study Group, and I would like to welcome you all at this side event of the World Rubber Summit. That is focused on Latin America, and this is an event organized by IRRDB in collaboration with SLTC, IRRDB, and Gremial. Why Latin America? Now, I received a lot of questions in relation to that, because Latin America, from our perspective, has a lot of potential in the rubber sector, especially on the natural rubber side. We have seen yesterday during the World Rubber Summit also a very interesting slide from Michelin, actually pointing out as Latin America is one of the areas where we should look at when we speak about expansion of natural rubber production. So I think it's a timing event, this one, and I think we have a lot of speakers, and I don't want to spend much time saying too many words. I think it's quite better to move forward with the event, and I will give the floor to Dr. Lekshmi Nair, that will moderate the first session. Thank you so much.
Good morning and good evening to all. I am Lekshmi Nair, Head of Economics and Statistics at the International Rubber Study Group. I'm echoing what Salvatore just mentioned. Latin America, even though it is produces lower than 6% of whether we look into natural rubber or synthetic rubber, but that region do have a great potential. So the first session of this side event that IRRDB organizing as part of the World Rubber Summit in collaboration with the International Rubber Research Development Board, APABOR, Gremial and SLTC, is the potential and opportunities for Latin America. Natural rubber, this region produces 3% of the global share, and this region fulfills around 1/3 of the requirement of Americas. Amid continuing supply disruption globally, this is one of the themes we discussed in the last 2 days of the World Rubber Summit. Supply chain integration of production and consumption, addressing climate change, and emission commitment is key in fueling the potential growth in Latin America. To address that, both in relation to the global situation, my colleague, GUO Jianfeng, the economist and statistician at the IRRDB Secretariat, will address this topic. Over to you, Jianfeng.
Okay, thank you, Lekshmi. Let me share my slides first.
Yep.
Okay, good evening and good morning, everyone. I'm really happy to see all of you here today, and it's a pleasure for me to kickstart today's side event with my presentation on the market outlook and opportunities for the Latin American rubber industry. My presentation will be divided into 3 main parts. Firstly, the brief overview on the global rubber market for the past 3 years. Then I will concentrate on the regional overview of the industry in Latin America. Finally, I will take you through the regional rubber trade landscape. All right, let's get started. Badly impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic, the global rubber demand in 2020 experienced the largest contraction in the past decade, declined by 6.1% to 27 million tons, and with NR demand recorded more severe contraction than the SR demand. So strong recovery in the second half of 2020 in China, as well as advanced economies, helped to partly offset the significant reduction in rubber demand elsewhere. The global rubber market recovered strongly in 2021 by 9.4% and reaching 29.6 million tons, exceeding the pre-pandemic level in 2019. The strong rebound was supported by pent-up demand from both tire and non-tire sectors. The global demand for NR bounced back in last year by 9.4% and reaching 13.9 million tons, owing to sharp recovery in the commercial vehicle replacement tire segment in the mature and emerging markets because of increasing freight volumes. The demand for SR, synthetic rubber, also recovered strongly by 9.5%, supported by the robust demand from the non-tire sector. The growth momentum in the SR demand from the tire sector is actually lower than what we expected because of the prolonged chip shortages, delay in delivery times, and bottlenecks in the global supply chain that impacted mobility sector in last year. These delays are expected to continue through 2022, and the impact on demand will be seen shortly after. Yeah. So when we look at the regional share of the global rubber market, we notice that the Latin American only contributes to a small percentage of the market share, representing around 3% of both NR and SR production. Rubber demand from the region cuts a slightly higher piece of the global market, with 5% of the natural rubber demand and 6% of the synthetic rubber demand coming from Latin America. One straightforward observation that we have from this graph is that there's a mismatch between the rubber supply and demand in the region, which provide huge growth potential in the future. We will extend the market balance in detail later. So now let's zoom into the natural rubber production in the region. In 2021, Latin American countries produced around 370,000 tons of NR in total, marked a 5.8% recovery from the contraction in 2020. Brazil and Guatemala are the two largest producers, which accounted for around 86% of the total NR production in the region. So production from Guatemala has been the main driver for the region's NR production growth in the last, in the recent years, with growth rate of 8% and 9.9% in 2020 and 2021 respectively. And the major NR product type are TSR rubber and latex, with the production ratio of 2:1 in terms of the amount being produced in the country. For the detailed information on NR production in the region, we have several speakers today from these countries. So later they will be sharing with us their insights about the recent market development. Moving on to the other source of rubber, synthetic rubber. The annual production is slightly higher than that of the NR in Latin America, with total volume of 477,000 tons in 2021. This represents a 23.1% recovery from the 4% decline in 2020. There are three major producing countries for synthetic rubber in the region, Brazil being the largest, followed by Mexico and Argentina. So major SR producing companies in the region includes Alenxio, with most of their plants located in Brazil, and also Dinosaur, with plants in Mexico, as well as Pampa Energia, which is located primarily in Argentina. And among them, Alenxio owns around 2/3 of the SR capacity, while Dinosaur owns around 30% of that. So the rest is coming from Pampa Energia. With a total SR capacity of around 740,000 tons per year, the operational rate is around 64 to 65% as of 2021. The major elastomers being produced in the region includes both emulsion SPR and solution SPR, as well as polybutadiene rubber. Aside being used locally, the SR producers in the region also export their products to markets like USA, Malaysia, as well as European Unions. When we move to the demand side of the market, it is clear that the rubber consumption in the Latin American region is much higher than that of the supply. So total rubber consumption grew by 28.8% in 2021, reaching 1.58 million tons. That represents about 5% of the global rubber consumption of 29.7 million tons last year. Brazil and Mexico are the two largest downstream market in the region, accounted for around 84 to 85% of the regional demand. And last year, Brazil consumed around 900,000 tons of rubber, while Mexico used around 420,000 tons of rubber. So here are the detailed NR and SR consumption split in the region for the past 3 years. As we can see, Brazil, Mexico, and Argentina are the main consumers in the region, with both passenger cars and the commercial vehicle tire plants supporting the demand growth. So Brazil consumes about 400,000 tons of NR and under 500,000 tons of SR every year, while Mexico consumes slightly more than 100,000 tons of NR and also 300,000 tons of SR every year. On the other hand, demand from Argentina is relatively small and stable, which is around 30 to 50,000 tons per year for both NR and SR. So at the beginning of my presentation, I mentioned that there is a mismatch between rubber supply and demand in the Latin American region. Here is a more detailed picture on how big that gap is over the last 5 years. On average, there is a deficit of around 250,000 of NR and around 400,000 of SR in the region. The implication is that around half of the region's rubber demand is met by imports from outside the region. And we will look into the rubber trade dynamics in the next 2 slides. So being the major consuming country in the region, Brazil, Mexico, and Argentina are also the major importers of NR. Their main trade partners are Indonesia, Thailand, as well as Guatemala, which supply around 75% of the total import. NR imports from the Latin American region experienced a strong recovery in 2021 with 51% increase after the 2 years of decline in 2019 and 2020. On the other hand, Guatemala, which we can see on the right-hand side of the graphs, is the only sizable NR exporting country in the region because there's very little domestic demand in the country. So NR export from the region has been consistently growing over the past 5 years, with TSR and the latex being the 2 major selling products. Latex export represents around 35% of the overall NR export. Major buyers include Mexico, USA, as well as Chile. There is considerable cost benefit for buyers in the Americas to source their raw material within the region. Now let's take a look at the SR trade dynamics in the region. The SR trade market in Latin America has the similar characteristics as compared to the NR side, with import volumes consistently higher than the export volume in the past 5 years, as you can clearly see from the graph. And we could further notice a widening gap between the import and export, actually. Brazil and Mexico are still the major players in the region, but there is a change in the trade partners as compared to that in the NR sector. So as you can see, USA, EU27 and Russia are the main SR suppliers to Latin America, with around 80% of the import coming from these three places. North American is also the major buyer of SR produced in Latin America, although with much lower volume compared to what they are selling to the region. SR shipments in the region are mostly SBR, as well as some polybutene rubber and also halobutyl rubber. Then finally, let's take a look at the downstream tire market in the Latin American region. These two graphs illustrate the tire trade dynamics in the past 4 years. There are plenty of international tire majors operating in the region, which includes Bridgestone, Pirelli, SMPT, Goodyear, JK Tire, Continental, etc. Their tire plants are mainly located in Brazil and Mexico, which are either closer to the raw material source or to the consumer market, which is mainly USA and Canada. So as you could see from the graph, tire trade flow in the region has already recovered from the contraction in 2020, and in the especially in the truck and bus tire sector, the demand for import tires are significantly higher in 2021, even comparing with that in 2019. So low-cost tires from China makes up around 56% of the total tire imported by Latin American countries. Because of the anti-dumping and countervailing duties imposed by the US and the European Union on the Chinese tires, Chinese tire makers have repositioned their strategy to focus more on the emerging markets, such as the Latin American region. In addition, US is also one of the main suppliers of the truck and bus tire for the Latin American market. On the export front, most of the tire produced in Latin American region are either used within the region itself or being shipped to the North American markets. So to summarize my presentation today, rubber consumption in Latin America, both for NR and SR, has recovered significantly in last year, although with decelerating pace in the second half of the year as a result of the global supply chain disruption, as well as the rising inflationary pressure. So moving on to 2022, these factors are expected to continue weighing on the growth in rubber demand for the region. From the data I have shown today, we can clearly see that there is insufficient rubber raw material supply in the region to meet the demand from local to meet the demand from local consumers, as only less than 60% of the rubber demand is met within the region. And the region is heavily depending on tire imports, especially in the commercial vehicle tire segments. There will be challenges on the way to self-sufficient for the regional rubber market, of course. However, with the prolonged global supply chain crisis affecting both raw material sourcing as well as the end product trade, we believe that there is clearly opportunity for investment in the region's rubber market. So with that brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for attention, and I hope you get a clearer overall picture for the Latin American rubber market. Yeah, Lekshmi, over to you.
Thank you, Jianfeng, for a detailed coverage of the Latin American region. It's, as Jianfeng rightly pointed out, the region has below 60% of the requirement is met. What is available within the region, that shows a huge potential opportunity for investment and expansion, both natural and synthetic rubber. And also it is as North American region is rapidly recovering. And there is huge potential for the products, if that is produced within the region, is exported within the North American region. And what we have seen globally is shortening of the supply chain discussion, and also the pressure building up in decarbonizing the supply chain. These two also provide a huge potential for this region to bring more investment. In that line of discussion, of course, that will be coming from the Latin American colleagues in the second session. I am moving on to our next speaker, Ms. Jessie NG, who is the Associate Director of Commodities in Singapore Exchange. She will be talking on derivatives market. Over to you, Jessie. Just to introduce Jessie, she is the Associate Director of SGX. She is responsible for developing and managing SGX commodity derivative products, including derivative contracts for battery raw materials and SICOM rubber. And she spearheaded the management of SICOM as a global pricing benchmark and the only physical deliverable contract on SGX, including the launch of the world's first TSR20 rubber option. Over to you, Jessie.
Thank you very much. I presume you can see my slides. Yeah. Okay, fantastic. I shall carry on. Please do stop me at any point in time if you have any questions or if you need any clarity. So just a brief introduction of SGX. As an exchange in Singapore, we have two core businesses. One would be our securities business, and the other would be the derivatives business. And where I functioning would be the derivative side of things. In 2008 is where SGX took over SICOM, which is known as the Singapore Commodity Exchange. And rubber having a very strong and long history in Singapore, which is very valuable. We kept the term SICOM really because SICOM is a term that is used vastly by industry participants. So today, in fact, our rubber contracts are known as SGX SICOM Rubber Futures. Just a quick snapshot of the various products that we have in SGX in the commodities space. We have a strong suite of bulk commodity, and that is in fact our iron ore and coal, as well as freight derivatives that we offer to the market. We are the seaborne pricing benchmark for iron ore, and we do have quite a strong market share in the iron ore market. In the agriculture space, we have rubber, which we are the global pricing benchmark for. And I'll share in a bit more details, of course, with the relevance to this presentation today. In terms of dairy is something that we have recently got into, and that is actually a partnership that we have with New Zealand Exchange. And this is something that was formalized last November. On the energy side of things, we have oil, petrochemicals, as well as electricity, and we are looking to offer batteries in relation to electric vehicles in the near future. So this is just a very broad example, or rather a broad suite of explanation for our SGX commodities. For the exchange, we are headquartered in Singapore. We do have multiple overseas offices. So on to SICOM rubber futures. I will not go in great detail in terms of what exactly is RSS and what exactly is TSR, because most of you would be experts at this. But just let me touch on this briefly, really because these are the two main grades of rubber that the SGX offer. We offer the RSS 3 and we offer the TSR 20 contracts. And these two contracts are very important, particularly the TSR contract, really because we are seeing a great amount of supply that is going into this area, as well as demand by the tire makers going into this area. In terms of the offerings that we provide, we have the futures contract as well as the options contract. For the futures contract, we have the TSR20 and RSS3, and this can be transacted by electronic trading, which is screen trading, or it can be done off exchange through EFP or negotiated large trades. In terms of the options contract, we have it on our more liquid contract, which is the TSR20 contract. For more details on the contracts, these are the links that are here, and we do provide some form of reports as well as research materials on our website. So on to the importance of SGX. I think what's important to mention here is that us being the global pricing benchmark, it's substantiated by the fact that we have tire makers using our contracts, or rather using our prices to price most of their raw materials, right? We're looking at, say, 75% of the transactions are based off SICOM prices. And why SGX or SICOM is important is the presence of physical players that we have in Singapore, that are headquartered in Singapore, both buyers as well as sellers. You have the likes of quite a number of, I would say, tire makers having their procurement centers based in Singapore. You do have some of the key suppliers, the likes of Sritrunk, the likes of Halcyon, that are also headquartered out of Singapore in terms of the supplier business. Now, the SGX rubber futures contract is also an alternative delivery channel, like what Dr. Lekshmi has mentioned in the introduction. The rubber contract that we have is the only physical deliverable contract on SGX, and this serves as an alternative channel. So why Singapore? Why SGX? Just to keep all of you aware, there are indeed other exchanges offering the rubber contracts in the whole world, right? You have OSE, which is Osaka Exchange, based in Japan. You have SHIFI or INE, based in China. You have TFEX, that's based in Thailand. You do have a couple of Indian exchanges as well that offers the RSS contract. So I think one thing that we wanted to point out, particularly for the futures contract, is the international appeal that we can provide because our contracts are denominated in USD. And this is the trade currency that is utilized in the rubber industry. Right. I've mentioned that we have the RSS3 contract, we have the TSR contract, and in the offshore space, meaning ex-China, we have the most liquid TSR contract. And even within the SGX rubber franchise, the TSR contract is the one with greatest liquidity. In terms of the trading hours, I thought it's good to mention as well. Our product runs through from 7:55 a.m. all the way through to 6 p.m. Singapore time. And this is really to cater for the rubber trade, which we are seeing quite a lot of activities that are based in the Asian time zone. So here is providing some statistics in terms of our products, the rubber franchise. So what you can see, maybe if I could draw your attention to the graph, is on the blue bars. You will notice that the blue bars are very strong, and that is actually our TSR20 contracts. And you can see that actually it covers more than 95% of the total volumes that you would see on the exchange. The red bits are RSS, and that is actually much smaller. So less than 5% of our total volumes are actually in the RSS contract. And this is in line with where the market is moving towards in terms of the TSR. Over here, it's to show just a snapshot at a point in time, and it's to show that we list 12 contract months in terms of the paper contract, 12 contract months, and there are OI and volume within all 12 contract months. So this is very useful for physical players. Hedgers can actually choose the actual contract month that they want to hedge their exposures. Over here is the liquidity profile of our SGX SICOM franchise. And I think important to show here is volume and open interest. We are very strong in terms of the second to the sixth contract months. And of course, that is denoted by both the green as well as the gray bars. So just as a flavor for the different products that we have, typically the TSR contract is on a contango structure, meaning your near month price is actually lower than your forward month. In terms of our RSS and our TSR contracts, RSS denoted by the green line, and TSR denoted by the blue line in terms of the prices, they typically move in the same direction. And if I could go a bit more in depth in terms of the market structure, in terms of the bid-ask spreads for the TSR contract, you will notice that the bars actually show the volume, and you will see that the volume spans across the day and quite nicely in the last hour as well. That's where quite a number of companies start to manage their exposures. And in terms of the blue line would be the bid-ask spreads, which are very important in showing that a very narrow bid-ask spread in the market with liquidity. And lastly, the last graph is really just showing the type of volatility that you see in the market. And that's why with the volatility in the market, it's important for market participants to recognize that a good hedging tool is important to help them manage the physical exposures. And when I mean physical exposures would be, say, your contractual agreements that you would have in the physical side of things, whether you're a buyer or a seller of rubber, how you can then utilize the futures contract to hedge against movements in the rubber prices. Over here is just a very simple pie chart to show the type of rubber participants that we have on the exchange. More than 50%, in fact around 60-ish%, are the physical participants. And this is natural, really, because our prices are utilized by the physical participants. And if I could touch briefly on the rubber options contract. So I've earlier mentioned that we launched the TSR20 rubber options contract. And this is really on the back of the fact that we have seen growth in the TSR20 futures contract. So just about a couple of years ago, we launched the options contract to provide the market participants with another avenue to risk manage. It is as if it's an insurance to the market. So just some statistics over here in terms of the rubber options contract that we have. In fact, last year was quite a good year for us for the rubber options contract, that we have seen volumes double year on year as compared to 2020. And to date, since launch, we have more than 15 participants trading the rubber options contract, and that spans from both the physical as well as financial players. This is actually my last slide. I think if I could summarize the products that we offer, or rather this is a derivative product that we offer, we believe would be important for the community to hedge against, again, their physical exposures that they would have, especially in light of volatility in the market. Do ask me if you do have any questions in this space, because I do understand that the physical aspect of hedging versus the paper aspect of hedging might be slightly different, but it serves the same, or rather the same objective that market participants would want to achieve. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jessie, for that detailed description of how SGX actions operate. I'm sure that certainly there will be more questions from the Latin American players for your details, as well as even for your training programs. As SGX is the reference price for international pricing, there may be certainly, you can expect more questions, and even for more capacity building programs that SGX Academy, there are different training programs they are organizing. So Jessie will certainly advise you or guide you on that line. Thank you, Jessie. Our next speaker is Mr. Santiago Fernando Cordoba. He's a senior economist in UNCTAD. Mr. Santiago is speaking on the role of UNFSS in the promotion of sustainable development. I like to introduce Mr. Santiago. He's a senior economist. At the same time, he's wearing the hat of the head of the sustainability action in UNFSS, who is the leading UN organization on sustainability standard. He advises government on economic development, trade negotiation, and promotion. He participated as a speaker for many trade negotiations and many economic development programs. And also, I like to mention here, IRSG also have collaborating with the UNFSS in some of their events, as UNFSS have more dialogues and actions is going on with a national platform on integrating the role of VSS with the national platform from the perspective of sustainable development goal. Over to you, Santiago.
Thank you, Lekshmi, for that really kind introduction, and good evening, good morning, good afternoon to everybody. I'm going to try to share my screen so that you can see my presentation. Please let me know if you can see my screen in the full mode, or if you're seeing in the full mode.
Can you please make into full mode?
Are you seeing now in full mode? Yes. Yeah. Okay. So once more, thank you, Lekshmi, for that kind introduction, and thank you to Secretary General Pinizzotto for also inviting us in the United Nations to this event. We feel it's extremely important to speak to this audience with regards not only to rubber, also with regards to sustainable rubber, and also with regards to the issues related to sustainable development. As you mentioned, Lekshmi, we have been collaborating for a number of years now on various events with the International Rubber Study Group, and we really highly appreciate this collaboration as you bring into our perspective of the national platforms, and also with regards to our research, this important component of this fundamental commodity for the livelihood of many, not only farmers, but also smallholder producers, and also a large sector of the economies in many developing countries. Today, I've been asked to talk to you a little bit about those sustainable development issues with regards to the role of voluntary sustainability standards and the role of sustainability with regards to some of those concerns that we all have at heart, which are obviously those environmental concerns regarding climate change, biodiversity, and of course other concerns with regards to social concerns with regards to human rights, and of course fair price and welfare of many livelihoods. And so with that background, I would like to just introduce a bit what I'm going to talk about with regards to voluntary sustainability standards, what is the UNFSS, and what do we do in terms of national platforms, and maybe provide some interesting points for you, in particular in the region of Latin America. So I guess many of you have probably already encountered the voluntary sustainability standards around in your business or in your sort of a consumer mode of buying products around the markets and feeling how you can in many ways affect your consumption patterns to achieve certain development goals. So for voluntary sustainability standards are basically those requirements that producers, traders, manufacturers, retailers, or service providers may be asked to meet relating to a wide range of sustainability metrics, including basic human rights, worker health and safety, the environment impact of production, community relations, land use, planning, and others. So we see today that in the markets, consumers are paying more and more attention for certain issues that are at their heart, and they want to make sure that what they're consuming in a way is respectful for some of those concerns on human rights, environment, and other issues. Today, it's a market reality. Today, we see a large number of them functioning along the supply chains around the world. According to the Eco Label Index, there are over 500 of them functioning internationally on various commodities. Some of those commodities you see below in the screen in agriculture, textiles, garments, other consumer productions, processed foods, and the number is increasing every day. Some of them, of course, they are in a way civil society initiatives. Other are initiatives that are public-private initiatives and other initiatives that are also multi-stakeholders approaches, like between consumer production associations and civil society, which could be also defined as sustainable natural rubber initiative that you are probably all well familiarized. So as Lakshmi mentioned, I'm the coordinator of the United Nations Forum on Sustainability Standards. The UNFSS is a platform of 6 UN agencies, which are basically the Food and Agriculture Organization, the International Trade Center, the UN Environment, the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe, the United Nations Industrial Development Organization, and UNCTAD, which is the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development. The UN works together on the issues of voluntary sustainability standards because we have been asked by many emerging countries to kind of help them understand or find a better understanding of what is the implications of voluntary sustainability standards with regards to their development plans and also with regards to how they achieve, their integration into global markets. And we feel we've been functioning since 2013 that there is a very strong need in terms of understanding the implication of voluntary sustainability standards with regards to a large number of products. So in many ways, just to summarize, of course, VSS adoption can represent some opportunities and some challenges, in particular, not only for producers, but also for governments and for many partners around the supply chains of the various products. Here, I just mentioned a couple of opportunities with regards to why it should be considered about maybe, producers taking a closer look into voluntary sustainability standards. Sometimes it's just a market reality and you are not able to export to certain lucrative countries or markets if you're not able to sort of certify yourself. And of course, some of those opportunities are related to the fact that maybe there's a price premium, there's enhanced competitiveness or brand protection or increased demand. There's sometimes issues related to transactional costs, which are related to mutual recognition or reduce information asymmetry between the producers along the supply chain. Of course, there's also reduced institutional and development gaps between trade partners because of how the information is flows. And of course, sometimes there's even access to finance or financial markets, financial opportunities with regards to ESG opportunities that can also help producers adopt VSS. So then again, but for sure, one of the most important aspects is of course addressing those issues regarding sustainability and the sustainable development goals, which are related to the environment, the conservation of the environment, of course, the even distribution of gains along the supply chain, and of course, respect for human rights. But of course, there's also challenges, in particular for emerging economies or developing countries, as we see that, of course, there's the elements which can also represent this difficult. One is, of course, related to the power imbalances along the supply chain, because many of the producers of these agricultural products are basically small producers, small farmers along the value chain, and there's an issue related to the power imbalances. There's also the issue about proliferation. As I've shown before, there's a large number, so it becomes tremendously difficult for them to understand which certification system they have to apply to oversee access a market. Then the question about the applicability, then there's issues related to the certification cost, which usually comes as a very important hurdle or barrier to many accessing this kind of certification system. And of course, there's lack of incentives or opposition, or even an issue related to opposition. But in general, there's a lack of capacity to comply. All these are issues that we in the United Nations, we pay a lot of attention when we work on voluntary sustainability standards and their implications on trade. Let me just mention that, of course, we're talking in this forum, we're talking about the importance of the rubber sector with regards to certain economies, most of them emerging economies that have been mentioned. But as you see at the key, there's the element of trade as the link between trading between one country and another with a certain commodity, accessing a market, a more lucrative market. And that's why one of the reasons that, of course, voluntary sustainability standards and the national platforms that we support represent an important element in trying to advance the sustainability agenda. So we in UNFSS, as Lekshmi knows, and the International Rubber Study Group has been collaborating, we have three sort of elements that we work on. We work on research and analysis because we want to advance the transparency in various sectors, and we believe that this is fundamental. We believe on a dialogue between the North, the South, the South, the South on these issues, and we have hosted various events that have increased the visibility of this kind of issues. And of course, as you know, in the international arena, many of the issues that we're discussing together today they don't fall under WTO rules, under the World GATT or the World Trade Organization ruling system. So there is a need to advance certain concerns through a different kind of dialogue. And of course, we support national platforms. As of today, we have over 20 national platforms running around the world. I'm going to mention a couple of them later, but these are demand-driven platforms that have initiated by public-private initiatives in countries such as China, India, Brazil, Mexico, CARICOM countries. Africa Regional Standardization Organization has recently launched a regional platform for the whole continent of Africa, and we have other initiatives in countries like Indonesia, Malaysia, Vietnam, and Colombia. But as I mentioned before, and it's important for you to recall, why are voluntary sustainability standards important in terms of sustainable development and sustainable trade? Because of that link between the economic, the social, and the environmental intersection, where we try to address certain issues that are important with regards to the sustainable development. Some of them are included in this slide. I don't need to repeat them, but of course you have issues related to food security, improved health, employment creations. Of course, you have issues related to labor rights, issues related to fair price and transfer of benefits, and of course, we have issues related to biodiversity protection or deforestation prevention and redemption, soil conservation, water use and management, waste management, and climate change mitigation and carbon emissions. These are some of the issues that are very much also addressed through the national platforms that I mentioned, that we support, and that they function as an interaction between those partners or those driving forces in many developing countries, which are obviously the private sector, the governmental sector, and the international sphere, where there needs to be sort of an important interaction in terms of how voluntary sustainability standards can support the sustainable development paths of many of the countries that I have mentioned before. Here is a map where you see where many of these platforms and initiatives are running. A lot of them are also in Latin America. We have a strong partnership in Brazil within Metro. We have a partnership with Colombia within Cotec. We have a partnership with CARICOM, with CrossQ, the regional standardization organization for the Caribbean countries. We're also working together with the Ministry of Economy in Mexico, and of course we also have collaborations with some other Andean countries and that are in the region. We believe that these national platforms represent a way of facilitating the dialogue, and of course, very important, also adapting external standards to domestic conditions. It's of course very important the knowledge sharing between various platforms, and at the same time knowledge sharing between the international institutions and capacity building. And of course, we feel that we can sort of provide analysis and research for this kind of policy instruments. For all these reasons, I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity. I do want to mention that it's fundamental in both the sectors of rubber and of course in the sector of forestry, the elements of certification and voluntary sustainability standards, and many some of the reasons that we have encountered in the research that we have carried out. We see that there's some sort of hurdles that represent a challenge with regards to this kind of initiatives in the rubber sector, which are related obviously to the issue of high price volatility that has been mentioned here before by other speakers, and of course the complexity of value chains. Of course, we're willing or ready to try to work together with the International Rubber Study Group to kind of provide more assistance to its members and to participants when it regards to understanding how we can advance this sustainable development agenda in the rubber sector. Over to you, Lekshmi.
Thank you very much, Santiago. This is what we have summarized in our last 2 days of deliberation in World Rubber Summit. Is exactly the same. It is the importance of working with the national platforms, national governments, because once the national platforms are equipped and supported to make sure that the small farmers are taken into account in that inclusive approach of development, and then it is whether it is voluntary sustainability standard or it is a verification process of the platforms, they can get harmonized into a global level higher standard, because for that certainly one has to start from the bottom, and the bottom up approach is what it is needed for the small farmers. And of course it is Latin America as a region. This is also very key because it's the requirement of the region is big, but the production from coating from a natural rubber point of view, it is small. So when they plan for expansion, as they can look into all this dimension you mentioned, and also they can work with the national platforms to attain the bigger goal of sustainability, decarbonization, and all those which fit well with the national agenda. So what you mentioned is work well with us. We look forward to work more on this topic. But some other point which other speakers mentioned, it is one is the price volatility, and IRRDB colleague mentioned on us there is huge potential for investment. All this aspect, when look into that, when investment comes to a region, there are other elements we need to look whether that investment is going to be efficient, the supply chain is working efficiently, and the proper integration is going to happen here. So that level of support, both from the national level as well as from the international level, and the organization like IRRDB is key. And we all need to work together to address these issues and to extend support for further development of this region. I'd like to point out, I think we have a couple of questions from Q&A. Okay, there is one question, I think certainly for Jessie, you mentioned about the TSR is the more, SCS is a reference price, and TSR 20, the adoptions. How the Latin American players, just a basic question, could take part in SICOP? Maybe something which all the players like to know from you.
Yeah, thanks for asking this question. I think if I could delve slightly deeper into the intricacies of the contract. So the SICOM contract, in terms of the physical delivery aspect, we can only accept 3 origins, which would be Malaysia, Thailand, and Indonesia. But that doesn't stop the market from using the contract as a benchmark, which what we have seen in the market, in fact, is the market using the SICOM prices as a benchmark in terms of physical transactions and in terms of hedging tools. So I believe even if Latin America, even Brazil, for example, is not an approved origin for physical delivery, there are still opportunities to use our pricing in terms of a basis for contracts. And if there's exposure to the basis or index link in some way, then that's where you can actually help to use the contracts, the paper contracts, to hedge your risk, to hedge potential risk that may arise from your physical contracts.
Thank you, Jessie. Okay, there is another question for Santiago. This is very much into the VSS. Okay, the opportunities and advantages openly by any agency and why?
Yes, I was reading the question. Yes, I think it's correct. I'm looking at the question asked by Jacob, and I believe, yes, there are the question about like, is it opportunities and advantages? Are they mentioned enough? I think we need to mention both the challenges and the opportunities. It's like, this is a policy tool that it's out there, and it's not as easy as you can reflect in terms of implementing, especially for export opportunities of some developing country producers. I advise you to read a bit of our research in UNFSS with regards to the flagship, or we have another publication which is called Better Trade for Sustainable Development, where we sort of also balance what are the opportunities and what are the challenges with regards to developing countries or emerging economies. And I think this, of course, we believe in the United Nations that there should be more transparency and that this information should make public, not only because we believe that we need this kind of tools, these market-based tools for sustainability at the national level, but we need to also take into account the concerns of developing countries. With regards to the question about India, the national platform in India is run by the Quality Council of India. So we're happy to connect you, Shyam, with the Quality Council of India, with the pertinent person there, if that's required. Actually, the India National Platform is the first national platform that we launched already like 6 years or 7 years ago. There is another sort of comment with regards to obviously the small farmers, the small producers, and how they have to carry the cost. I recommend a new study, which I'm going to put on the sort of chat box, which is regarding to its market access, where we look at the issues regarding the small farmers and what is their main concern. And there's 2-3 issues that come up, which is obviously the cost of certification. There's also the financial need of resources, and last but not least, capacity building. So all these questions I mentioned, or these comments by Santosh, are quite correct in terms of his comments. Over to you.
And thank you, Santiago. This is echoing what we discussed yesterday on World Rubber Summit. Of course, the small farmers need to be supported because the cost of certification is high. How we can bring the credit or green finance option to the small farmers, and the importance of the financial institution and the government, how they are coming in between, and how we can bring that private public support for giving needed capacity building and support for the small farmers. Yes, this is a vital part, and of course, VSS becoming more and more critical for sustainability of the trade and wider perspective of the sustainable development goal. Then one question, I think it's for my colleague Jianfeng. This is mainly on the synthetic rubber capacity expansion within Brazil. Jianfeng, can you address that question? It's a petroleum production. The production of synthetic rubber in Brazil and other Latin American countries is on the higher side. On the same way, the consumption due to the presence of the major tire manufacturers. Can you address this question, Jianfeng?
All right, Ken. Okay. I think for on the synthetic rubber side, the main reason for the imbalance between supply and demand is that because there are continuous investments in the tire facilities. I mean, in tire capacities within the region by major producers. For example, in last year, 2021, Bridgestone announced a plan to invest, to expand their capacities in one of their existing tire plants in Brazil. And I remember that in a few years back, before COVID, in 2018, there is also a capacity expansion plan announced by Michelin. So there are a few expansion projects or investments on the tire side. That's why we see increasing demand for the SR in the region. However, on the supply side, we don't really see any recent expansionary plans from the major SR producers within the region. Also, I think partly because of the limited supply of feedstock butadiene for the regional SR producers. Yeah, that's why there is an imbalance between the SR demand and supply situation.
Thank you, Jianfeng, for that. I think we should wrap up this session. Thank you very much for all the speakers. And this is a fact, it is openly addressed. It's a huge potential opportunity for this region, and investment is coming, but the region need to be careful while making the investment. All the sustainability credential and inefficiency within the supply chain need to be addressed. And there's a strong need for the government and the private sector to work together to address these issues. And also there is potential opportunity and the benefits for working with the international agencies to address all these topics. Thank you very much, all the speakers, for this wonderful session. Thank you very much. And I'm moving to the next session. I'm inviting the speaker, Ms. Maria Piña, who is CEO of SLTC. And Maria has been the president of Latin American Rubber Technology Society, SLTC, since 2017. And SLTC is joining with IRRDB and other two Latin American association, APABOR and Gremial, to organize this side event. Maria is the chemical engineer with more than 25 years of experience in rubber industry, business management, and entrepreneurship and innovation. She has carried out research and development work on precipitated silicas, salines, green tire, graphene, and pyrolysis of the end of the life of tires. As it's also a very interesting topic, it's certainly Maria will bring that element also into the discussion of end of the life of the tires and the circularity discussion that the SLTC is now deeply discussing. Over to Maria.
Sorry. Hi, everybody. Thank you, Lekshmi. I want to thank the SRG for the invitation. We are very happy to be here and having the opportunity to talk about Latin America and the opportunities that Latin America has to offer to the whole rubber industry. So I will begin to talk about the people that are with me. First of all, I want to present, Gerardo. Hi, Gerardo. I want to present Gerardo Sánchez. Gerardo Sánchez is CEO of Agres Group. Agres Group pioneered the development of the North region in Guatemala as a natural rubber production area in the 90s. Agres oversees 1,500 hectares of FSC certified natural rubber forests, and they are currently building their first processing plant in the region. So then I don't know if you want to talk or should I present everybody?
Hello, everybody. You can continue presenting everybody, but good morning,
okay.
Good evening.
So good morning. So Fernando Garcia Rubio is with me also. Fernando is Executive Director of the Confederación Cauchera Colombiana and the Corporación Centro de Investigación en Caucho. Fernando is a forest engineer with a specialization in production, transformation, and trade of tropical goods. He also has a master in environmental engineering, and he has more than 20 years of experience in research and development in permanent crops. He's advisor to various forestry and natural rubber projects, and as I say, is executive director of the Colombian Rubber Confederation. And last with us is Sebastian Parra. Sebastian Parra is an expert in formulation, development, and marketing of elastomers. He has spent a large part of his career in the cultivation and processing of Mexican natural rubber, innovating in the design of new grade modified in situ and promoting novel productive management practice. He's the founder of Ule Natural, what is a consultancy agency dedicated to the development of composite materials. And he has collaboration with compounders in Mexico and in the production of natural and synthetic rubber compounds. So I think Gerardo is going to begin. So thank you so much. And if you have questions, please, you can write it in the Q&A section so we can read it later.
Gerardo, you are muted. Can you unmute, please?
Can you see my presentation?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So good evening, good morning, good afternoon to everybody. I'm Gerardo Sánchez. I'm the CEO of Agrix Group. Among other crops, we manage 1,500 hectares of sustainable and FSC certified natural rubber in the region of Petén in Guatemala. That's the northern part of the region. And I'm here to talk about a couple of things. I'm here to talk about Guatemala as a high producing country. And I'm going to talk about a little bit later, but just tying a little bit of the other presentations. When you saw Jianfeng's presentation, you saw that Guatemala is the second biggest producer in Latin America, just second to Brazil. And just for reference, Brazil is 85 times bigger than Guatemala. And I'm going to try the data afterwards. I'm going to talk about a little bit about Guatemala in brief, the natural rubber industry in Guatemala, the key factors for success of what has worked in Guatemala and why Guatemala is now a mature place to grow rubber, the country potential, and a little bit of my conclusions. So Guatemala in brief, Guatemala is located in Central America. It has a total area of 108,000 square kilometers. Just in reference, Brazil is 8.5 million square kilometers in size. We have a tropical hot climate with a humid lowlands and cooler highlands. As you can see in the map, we have two east-west trending mountain chains that divide the country into three regions. The mountains highlands, they're in the middle and to the west. The Pacific coast, which is down here to the south. And the vast northern Petén lowlands, which we are part of, or where we have most of our plantations. The mean elevation, and means sometimes not a good measure, but it's 759 meters in altitude. Our main agricultural products are sugarcane, bananas, oil and palm fruit, maize, coffee, pineapples, cardamom, and of course, rubber. So we have about 70 years of rubber crop history. What's particular about Guatemala from other rubber producing regions is that this has been purely private sector investing. You've seen other big rubber producing countries that they've had or a lot of help in developing their industry from the government. In Guatemala, this is purely private sector investing. We at the moment have an area of 116,000 hectares of natural rubber, which about 65% are currently in production. The rest are maturing and should be start tapping in the next 5 to 7 years. Our total rubber production, as Jianfeng said, is about 118.5 metric tons per year. This is the info from 2021. And the average production per hectare is 2 metric tons a year in mature plantations. Of course, this measure is always hard to figure it out because it depends on your tapping panel. It depends on the maturity as a whole of the plantation or the country's plantations. Some good facts or some specific facts about Guatemala and sustainability is that we were the first country to certify and commercialize FSC certified natural rubber. Now a lot of different countries and now a lot of different plantations are doing the same or be able to say, but we pioneered in that. And we were the first country to certify carbon credits to sell in the VCS markets. And again, tying to past presentations, 99% of the natural rubber production is exported as a raw material. That's why in other presentations, we were seen as primarily an exporter and not necessarily an importer, because currently there's no industrialization done in the country. First, I'm going to talk about factors for success or how Guatemala has managed to be, although 85 times smaller than Brazil, be very close, almost 60% of their production. So there has long been great rubber producing culture that caused the founding of Gremial de Uleros, which is an association that was founded in 1970 and supported and funded by producers which are part of the Gremial. They give 1% of their sales to fund this institution. That what it does, it's constantly trains in field and brings experts from around the world. It implements in field. It has a team of technicians that go to the farms, to go to the plantations and implement global, and this is important, local best practices, because what works in some places not necessarily works in specific parts of the country or the world. Like Guatemala, it's divided in a couple of regions. Some clones of rubber clones work in some regions, some clones don't. And Gremial also has constant R&D to develop local best practices and test global best practices, because what works in Asia, which is the primary producing area in the world, not necessarily will work in Guatemala. Some key factors that I think have worked for Guatemala is that we know what clones or what rubber clones work in Guatemala and what works in what region and what doesn't. We have been able to have excellent quality nurseries. So if you plant a good tree from the beginning, you should have a good plantation at the end. We have adequate tree development programs for the growth period in the plantation. We have proper tapping training and proper tapping culture. So there's available tappers who can work. We have continuous production monitoring. So you don't want to exploit your trees, because that will bring a lot of problems in the future. We have from part of Gremial or part of we have a monthly tapping audit reviews, so to stay on top of tapping quality. We have periodic tree health diagnostics through Letix diagnostics, just to see the tree health. We have integrated pest and disease management, and of course we could do all this well, but if we didn't have the appropriate climate for rubber, it wouldn't work. I mean, and that's has happened before all over the world, where they try to grow rubber and it just doesn't work because it's not the appropriate climate and land to use for that. So just from that slide, what we can come up to is that Guatemala is a really safe bet for rubber expansion. It has a lot of potential because it's a mature market where the country knows and has the institutions to help a grower. So it's not like testing something new in a new area. We know what we're doing, and we have the institutions to help us. Looking back and to see the country potential, Guatemala is strategically positioned for the continental nearshoring, and that's again tying back to what has happened in recent times. We have a lot of logistic woes. Procurement from Asia hasn't been easy as it was 2 years ago. It's more expensive. There's a lot of delays. So Guatemala has been gaining a lot of popularity for nearshoring, and now it's nearshoring raw material, but at the end of the day, it could be nearshoring industrialization. There's a potential to industrialize Guatemala. Our current average production per hectare will keep getting better thanks to the maturing of new plantations. We have researched and we have noticed that there's enough at that land to plant rubber to grow 6 times our current plant area. So grow to 600,000 hectares. We have a group or a culture of well-trained producers committed to sustainable production. Guatemala also has a big culture of cattle growing. Most of, and for example, in our experience, what has been traditional pastures, most of them have been transferred to rubber. So you're actually reforesting what used to be pastures with cattle. Guatemala has a stable and resilient economy. We have a stable GDP growth. Just as a side note, in 2020, when the pandemic hit, Guatemala only contracted 1.5% its GDP, and then the last year, 2021, it grew 8%. So Guatemala's economy is outstanding in the region. We've had in difference to many countries in the region, we have a stable exchange rate for the last 30 years. And we have a really friendly economy to investment. So we don't have barriers to foreign direct investment. This is just to show the logistical benefits of Guatemala. Guatemala has ports in the Atlantic side and the Pacific side. And this is just to show how we're able to ship to different destinations pretty quickly compared to other countries or other sources. So we could be in the US West Coast in 10 days going through the Pacific, or we could be in the US Northeast in 8 days. We're 24 days in Europe, we're in Brazil in 24 days, we're in Colombia in 14 days through the Atlantic, but in 4 days through the Pacific. We could also go to Mexico, any part of Mexico in 4 days by land, or we could go to the US southern border in 4 days by land also. So Guatemala is really strategically and logistically positioned in order to be able to export to different markets or industry hubs. So some conclusions. I think Guatemala has been able to do well in the natural rubber industry through continually working on following best practices, and not just global best practices, but developing its own local best practices. So it's a mature market, mature industry for Guatemala rubber. We know what we're doing. There's the logistic benefits. Guatemala strategically with a great response times for nearshoring. So although historically industrialization has been established in Asia or bigger economies, the current logistic woes have created a need to bring production closer to market, or at least diversified raw material procurement origins. And that's where Guatemala comes in. And we see that there's investment opportunities. We have the capacity to grow 6 times our production and do it sustainably, not by deforesting, but just by converting things like pasture lands or maize plantations into rubber. We have excellent qualified labor availability to grow. And we have an investment-friendly, stable economy. So thanks for attention. Feel free to contact me if you want more info about economy, about the rubber industry in Guatemala, or any questions in general.
Thanks, Gerardo. We have one question specifically for you. So Thomas Wihaya is asking, what is the majority rubber clone grown in Guatemala? And how much rainfall is rubber growing area in Guatemala? The productivity is very high.
So first, the clone, there's a variety of clones. It depends on where you're growing. In the north, or we have IAN 873. I know in the south they use a lot of RIM 600, but it actually depends, and that's part of Guatemala has a variety of lands, of altitudes, of rainfall. Rainfall for us in the north is about 1,500 millimeters a year. In the south, you could get anywhere from 2,500 to 3,000 millimeters in the year. So it all depends. We have fertile lands. But yeah, I think that those were the questions.
The last questions say that the productivity is very high. I mean, so why do you think that the productivity is so high in Guatemala compared to other countries?
No, so I think I think it's those key factors for success. I think it's just following. It's a very committed producer community to doing things well, doing things right. And I think in fertile lands, proper climate. I think there's another question by Thomas, and he's talking about. I think I saw one about the leaf blight.
Yeah, someone was asking, but they deleted too. Yeah.
So
about the leaf.
Microcyclus, how we address it in the Atlantic and in the North is by using resistant clones. IAN 873 has proved to be resistant to Microcyclus, and that's why, at least in our plantations, that's 90 to 95% of our clone. We do continuously test new clones to see if there's something interesting about new clones, and rubber periods are long. So it's not as easy to try a clone. If you want to try a clone, it'll take 15 years, 20 years to actually prove it's a clone that works in the region. I don't know if there's another question, if that answers the question.
No, I think that's it. So probably we'll have more questions later. So now I'm going to present Fernando Garcia. Are you there, Fernando? Yeah.
Hi, Maria.
Hi. Okay. So I will leave you talk.
Okay. I share screen. You can see my presentation?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Okay.
Can you do it in presenter? Oh, yeah, perfect.
Okay. Hi. Good morning in Latin America. Good night in other continents. On this occasion, we're going to quickly address the situation of the natural rubber sector in Colombia. And as in the last 2 years, a strategy has been consolidated for certification marketing of carbon credits for natural rubber producer in Colombia. We are going to take a brief look on the formation of the natural rubber sector in Colombia and the general situation of the plantation. The natural rubber, while in Colombia, is led by the Colombian Rubber Confederation, which manages the political aspect and government support for the entire chain. There is also the National Natural Rubber Research, which carries out technical assistance, technological development, and innovation activities. The Colombian Rubber Confederation also manages the Rubber Development Fund, which collects a percentage of the production at the national level, which is then invested in research and technical assistance for the natural rubber producers of Colombia. The natural rubber sector in Colombia is made up of more than 10,000 small producers in 18 departments, organized into 12 regional associations and 6 municipal or local associations. A good part of these producers are located in areas of difficult public order, are areas of illicit crops, among other social aspects, where the cultivation of natural rubber has proven to the profitable alternative of the agriculture reconversion of each area. Regarding agribusiness and industry, Colombia has a wide variety of industries on the agribusiness that has been growing in recent years. 5 technical specific rubber plants, 4 centrifugal latex plants, more than 10 agribusiness of small producers, and large number of finished product industries. Now, I'm going to present how the strategy has been the certification of carbon credits in natural rubber plantation in Colombia, and how the union organization have built a strategy to strengthen regional organization and ensure the best profitability of rubber producer for small farmer producer in the rubber natural in Colombia. It all started with the participation is an union in a government program where a comprehensive process was developed for the definition of contract strategies to obtain successful business alternatives, but in the commercialization of rubber and natural rubber and additional attributes, including ecosystem service. This program made it possible to define the scope and strategic lines of work that should be emphasized in order to achieve better marketing alternative, but nationally and internationally. Innovation in products and service, improvement of process and strengthening of the social and environmental attributes that exist behind each raw material and finished product. In this way, we began to tell our story behind each exporter of marketed products. 20,000 hectares of illicit crops replaced with natural rubber plantation, more than the 5,000 hectares of protected natural forests, population affected by armed conflict, benefiting for sustainable jobs, certification of carbon credits, and carbon natural companies in each of their process. Among this strategy, a program of project is created to connect each of the links in the value chains and begin to recognize the weaknesses and strengths of each one to strategic process and strategic business and marketing. This program is called Uniendo Eslabones. Today is an interactive commercial platform that functions as meeting points of all members of the chain. It has been an initiative that was consolidated in alliance with the Acoplásticos Industrial Union. Another important aspect of this entire planning process for the sector in Colombia was the determination to seek added value in the raw material based in quality improvement, achieve environmental and social certification, and find attributes to contribute to the commercialization of the natural rubber business for the small farmers. This situation coincides with several governmental strategies in medium and long term, but to contribute to the improvement of change of climate over the global level. This initiative has opened a part that today allows us to have access to environmental, mechanical, and improve to financial aspect of the natural rubber business for producers. Since the year 2015 year, a series of laws and decrees have been developed that have made it possible to consolidate the strategy of certifying forests and natural rubber plantation in carbon credits and receiving real economical benefits for each producer and the association to which they belong. That law allows companies that consume fossil fuels the possibility of paying a carbon tax in two ways. One, directly to the National Tax Office, and the second option through the purchase of carbon credits that come from forest plantation and natural rubber for small farmers and high farmers in Colombia. The development of the project has a series of steps to achieve the certification of carbon credits in each producer and develop a joint strategy of several producers by region that has been called Umbrella. These steps are part of the requirements for organization that verify and certify that everything meets the requirements of the process. Regarding the commercial proposal of the producer of natural rubber, while the developer of the process, which are in your case is a company CO2. Each producer must complete with these steps to achieve the consolidation of each certification. This process can take between 3 or 6 months. These bonds are marketed with national industry that has the obligation to pay the carbon tax and companies that want to be carbon neutral. These projects are contemplated for a term of 20 years. The value of carbon tax per tonnage is determined by law, Colombian law, and year after year in increase with the country's annual inflation. Today, it exceeds $4 per tonnage of certified carbon. To achieve the strategies, it has been important to have a great alliance, a developer of carbon project with extensive experience such as CO2, the technical measurement of the Cenicaucho Research Center, and the Colombian Rubber Confederation as an articulator with the regions and the producer associations. Below, we illustrate the location of the umbrellas, the number of producers in each of the and the area of certified natural rubber in each year. This is another umbrella in the central zone of the country. In some umbrellas, small and medium producers of natural rubber are mixed with the timber forest plantation. 3% is left from the utility of the project developer process, which is divided among the association of producer in the region where the umbrella is located. Another part for the research center that has carried out the technical measurement, and final percentage for the union organization. In this way, not only the producer receive benefit, but also the organization of the territory and the national organization is consolidate the support. The certification are developed annually and will continue to be carried out for 20 years, previously started. And now there are 5 umbrellas for groups of certificate producers or natural rubber with more than 26,000 hectares and commercialized more 1,800,000 tons of carbon. These are really alliance and strategic that generate value and generate sustainability and support for the natural rubber business, even in situation of low price. Thank you very much for your keen attention and the invitation of this event. Maria,
thank you, thank you, Fernando. We only have a question, but I mean, I have to say that Colombia has grown a lot, and the potential of Colombia is very big. How many hectares are going to be in production in the next several years? Do you have an idea?
1 ton for activia, 130.
Yeah, there are a lot. Someone is asking, Chiham Gopta is asking how to connect with producers in Colombia. I think that he's asking if there is any central directory. I think that's why you work with the Unión de Eslabones, so you can answer.
Good question. The social architectural composition of the producer of natural rubber in Colombia is with association of products in different regions, and but the Confederación Cauchera Colombiana is an organization of lead this connect with regions and connect this region with the government. The organization national permanent have the permanent communication with the association in region, and now with Unión de Eslabones have one point of encounter for the different themes for the interest for the producers, agribusiness, industry, in the side, in the territory, with a professional of technical assistant for the plantation, for the industry, and other themes of interest, the producer component for the sector.
Yeah, and Fernando, Dr. Jacob Matthews is asking, are both immature and mature rubber plantations equally eligible for carbon credit? What are the major criteria to obtain the credits?
Yes, every plantation, yeah, but immature and mature plantation is included by the eligibility for carbon credit. Plantation for the 2 years of the age that's included by the plantation. One condition is 10 years before is not have a natural forest in this area. It's a condition for the verified institute. But in Maduria and Maduro rubber plantation is included for the carbon credits.
Media One is asking, does anyone buy the carbon certificate? So who is buying these carbon certificates? Sorry.
Well, in Colombia, it's a small forest have a trouble, but legally soil of farms. This is one condition for more difficult, but by the carbon certification in my country. But anyone buy the carbon certification in the Colombia. I'll speak for the company for use combustible for fuel fossil, but now the commerciality of the carbon certificate is many companies, many person for the carbon neutral, but the empresarial image and social responsibility.
Thank you. There is a question, but I will say this question at the end, Santosh Kumar. Okay, so...
Thank you, Maria.
Thank you, Fernando. Thank you so much. Now we are going to have Sebastian Parra Araya. I will have Sebastian with the translation. So please be a little patient with the translation. So Sebastian is going to talk about the consuming industry. So Sebastian, you talk and I translate. Don't talk too long.
Okay. 1 second. Ok. Bueno, buenos días a todos.
Good morning, everybody.
Sí, vamos a tocar un tema muy sensible acá en Latinoamérica que tiene que ver básicamente con comprender el comportamiento del mercado latinoamericano en la compra y venta de hule natural.
We're going to talk about sensible topic in Latin America, which is the market that buy and sells rubber in Latin America.
Tenemos que mirar desde un punto de vista muy sensible, ¿ya? Los desafíos que el día de hoy nos interpone la industria cada día con respecto a nuevos requerimientos, sean técnicos o sean comerciales.
This is a challenge topic because the industry has a lot of new requirements, technical and commercial, and even I would say the supply chain challenges.
En América Latina, si bien es cierto, tenemos tres grandes actores, como comentaba un colega, México, Argentina y Brasil, ¿ya? No dejan de ser importantes también otros países como Colombia, Chile y Perú, quizás no tanto por su consumo, sino por la demanda de alta calidad de los materiales.
Even though the main three big producers in Latin America are Mexico and Brazil and Argentina, there are other players that maybe not in volume, they are important, but they are important also in the quality of the products that they produce, like Chile, Peru, and I will say Colombia.
En la presente slide estamos viendo el consumo latinoamericano de los últimos 5 años, ¿ya? Y como podrán notar, no hay un incremento significativo, incluso de hace 10 años atrás, ya 8 para ser preciso, no hay un incremento significativo, lo cual ha demostrado de que Latinoamérica es un espacio para poder hacer negocios de manera estable, ¿ya? Obviamente, como notan, en el año 2020 tuvimos una caída abrupta del consumo latinoamericano de hule natural, producto de la pandemia, pero aún así, a pesar de todos los altibajos que nos propuso esta situación, se retomó de manera significativamente rápida el consumo latinoamericano.
In the present slide, you will see that the volume that we use in Latin America is pretty stable. Of course, we have a lower consumption in 2020, But Latin America has a stable consumption and a stable industry. We don't see any drop down in the consumption, and we present a lot of opportunities to grow.
Gran parte del consumo latinoamericano, por cierto, es en la industria del neumático. Sin embargo, ya resulta interesante muchas veces analizar las importaciones de cada país en función de su principal industria, y desde ese punto de vista hemos podido ir determinando que ciertos orígenes de material son más bien concebidos para algunas aplicaciones que en otras. Y esto para nosotros es un diagnóstico muy importante para poder ir estableciendo nuevas estrategias que nos permitan desarrollar materiales ad hoc al mercado latinoamericano.
As you see in this graphic, you will see the consumption of natural rubber in every country. This is important to see because the major industry in the region for rubber consumption is, of course, tires. But looking at with more detail, we can see that there are other industries that are also important, and that can allow us to develop new products that are ad hoc for these other industries.
En la presente gráfica podemos notar de manera más detallada la estabilidad que ha tenido el consumo en los últimos años, ¿ya? Y esto demuestra la fortaleza que tiene Latinoamérica desde el punto de vista de estabilidad en los negocios y lograr nuevos proyectos. Muchas veces todos los nuevos proyectos están en las barras más bajas, ¿no? Ya que el 90% del consumo principal de los materiales se va a la industria del neumático. Pero eso no quiere decir de que se esté creciendo en áreas de mayor especialización.
When we see this graphic, we see that, sorry, you changed it. ¿Lo cambiaste, Sebastián? ¿Estabas hablando de esta?
Sí, ahí sí, perdón.
We see that, even though the consumption is very stable in the major countries, the major producing countries, the lower the improvement on consumption in some of these countries are related to new projects that every country has beside the tire industry.
Ahora, dentro de este diagnóstico, algo que ha resultado interesante revisar, y personalmente que he tenido la oportunidad de poder investigar acá en México con distintas plantaciones, incluso analizando la calidad del mismo clon, específicamente IAN 873, nos hemos dado cuenta que al minuto de caracterizar todo este tipo de materiales, hay versus otros tipos de clones, ¿no? Como los clones que se ocupan en Indonesia, o algunos clones que se ocupan de nuestros vecinos de Guatemala, ¿ya? Hemos encontrado, ¿no? O hemos realizado hallazgos muy interesantes desde el punto de vista dinámico del rendimiento de estos materiales, y eso nos ha orillado, ¿no? El día de hoy a realizar estudios profundos caracterizando cada uno de estos materiales.
Sebastián, ¿puedes repetir la primera parte? Porque estás hablando mucho y no logro captar todo.
Ok. Sí, me refiero específicamente a que dependiendo del origen del material, lo que se demuestra en esta gráfica es que predominan ciertos orígenes de hule natural para Latinoamérica. ¿Ya? En los últimos años se ha marcado ese paso. ¿Ya?
Okay,
pero,
so déjame ir traduciendo porque si no me pierdo. What you can see in this graphic, and Sebastian is talking about a research that he has done mostly in Mexico about the origins that every country has in its import. The most of the imports are from Thailand and Indonesia, and what they are doing is trying to also check the clones that are planted in Mexico and how this is related to this.
Correcto. Y bueno, básicamente lo que hemos detectado es que el rendimiento de cada uno de estos materiales ya en el sector productivo pueden llegar a tener diferencias importantes, no solamente en el comportamiento inicial del material, sino en el comportamiento viscoelástico, en el mezclado, por ejemplo. Hay clones que tienen una diferencia importante en la incorporación en la industria y por este motivo creo que estamos a puertas de poder desarrollar materiales que sean muchísimo más funcionales para la industria.
What they are doing is that relating these origins, what they are planting in Mexico, Sebastian said that what they found is that some clones are, better in their properties, viscoelastic properties for what they do in Mexico. So what they are working on is that improving that so they can have different materials that are better for the specific market.
Algo que nos ha causado una muy buena impresión versus los materiales de Indonesia específicamente, ya me estoy refiriendo, por ejemplo, a un TSR10, es que la composición de los ácidos grasos en comparación a la composición de los ácidos grasos de un caucho seco mexicano, en este caso, ya es lo que promueve una mayor o menor dispersión de los negros de humo a causa de la polaridad que interviene en el mezclado y las cargas.
What they found also is that talking about TSR10 is the fatty acid content in the Indonesian natural rubber versus the Mexican natural rubber. Is that's very important when you talk about dispersion of carbon black in the final compound.
Este es un análisis que realizamos de los últimos 3 años y quisimos un poco representar cuál es regionalmente por qué la pandemia está causando nuevas oportunidades, ¿no? Desafortunadamente con todas las consecuencias que nos ha dejado el día de hoy. Pero notamos que el comportamiento para la industria llantera sigue siendo los mismos orígenes de consumo. Sin embargo, hemos notado de que el mercado se ha diversificado y esto ha permitido de que empresas que estaban el día de pre-pandemia estaban ocupando solamente hules naturales de ciertos orígenes, hoy en día han sido más pragmáticos para poder utilizar nuevos grados.
What this chart can show is that after the pandemic, I mean, the supply chain disruption during the pandemic made that people realize that they have to diversify their origins and their consumption of products. So what we can see here is that they were more open to try new origins and to avoid what happened during 2020.
Ahora, ¿cuáles son las oportunidades que hemos podido evidenciar y que creo que como bloque latinoamericano pudiéramos estar construyendo el día de hoy de una manera rápida, ¿sí? Como comentaba anteriormente un colega sobre el desarrollo de nuevos clones aquí en América Latina, evidentemente estamos en un punto geográfico muy estratégico para poder utilizar nuevas fuentes vegetativas para desarrollar clones que sean más, que contengan más particularidades técnicas.
One of the opportunities for Latin America is the development of new clones. And talking about that is we think that we can develop clones that can have different technical particularities that can allow to obtain certain development in the final compound.
Otro punto importante del cual se beneficia Latinoamérica, sobre todo en los países productores, son las condiciones climáticas. Creo que tenemos rendimientos notablemente distintos a los que se dan en Asia, y esto nos ha permitido poder desarrollar áreas de oportunidad en áreas geográficas, particularmente en México, donde el día de hoy se está promoviendo mucho el cultivo a un nivel exponencial, ¿ya? Y así poder crecer para empezar a cubrir las necesidades del sector.
Another very good opportunity for Latin America is that we are our weather conditions are very good for the cultivation of natural rubber. Talking about Mexico, Sebastian says that they are developing new areas where they feel like the natural rubber can cover. And increasing the production in Latin America, the first thing will be to cover the gap between imports and exports.
Ahora, otro punto muy importante es que ya cada día estamos pensando más en descentralizarnos de toda esta logística que hace muchos años ya nos tenía muy comprometidos para poder realizar una exportación de materiales de manera eficiente. Hoy el caso de éxito de México es el desarrollo del corredor transísmico, ¿ya? Que va a ser básicamente un paso paralelo, es un paso terrestre, va a ser un paso paralelo al Canal de Panamá. Y esto posiciona no solo a México en un área estratégica, sino a Guatemala y a Colombia como actores muy importantes para poder hacer suministro de materiales a Europa principalmente, ¿no? Esto ha sido una oportunidad para muchos productores de caucho natural desde el punto de vista de lo económico, que es transitar desde Américas hacia Asia, y viceversa, pues es donde tenemos la oportunidad.
There are another opportunities growing, like new corridors that are building in Mexico that can allow to use Mexico instead of Panama. So that will create a better economic condition for the producers in Mexico and in Guatemala to export to Europe or Asia. And that's a very interesting point. So because the cost of exporting from some producers in Mexico will be reduced, So that would be very important for the export conditions in Mexico and Guatemala.
Otro elemento muy importante que está sucediendo en este minuto es que muchas empresas europeas ya están tomando como plataforma de producción de productos para la industria de componentes antivibratorios y también de hule y también de caucho sintético. Están haciendo inversión en México, ¿no? Debido a todo el disturbio logístico que hay en Europa, y precisamente también por las bondades que tiene México desde el punto de vista logístico, industrial y cercanía que tienen con los principales mercados, con el principal mercado mundial, que en este caso sería Estados Unidos.
Due to the condition, the logistic condition that began in 2020 and is still in 2022, the logistic problem from Asia or Europe, Mexico is seen is seen as a very big producer now, where companies can produce products like anti-vibration components to serve not only Latin America, but also to serve the North American market, US and Canada from Mexico. So there are big and new companies being created in Mexico, or, only hubs created in Mexico so they can serve this market.
Ahora, deteniéndome en este punto en particular, la calidad de los materiales que por lo regular se utilizan en este tipo de piezas antivibratorias tiene una exigencia muchísimo más alta en varios casos en comparación a la fabricación de una llanta. Y esto nos está orillando el día de hoy y nos propone un desafío desde el punto de vista técnico para poder trabajar con los productores de caucho natural y poder desarrollar materiales compuestos que nos permitan cubrir los nuevos requerimientos que nos va a dar la industria.
Mexico has also a nice opportunity because developing, and I know that Sebastian is working a lot on that, is in developing new polymers, modifying these polymers with other products like carbon black, and which they have in Mexico. So Mexico having also other raw material producers are very important, so they can develop new products using fillers or other products in the polymer.
Otro desafío interesante, y esto seguramente es muy reciente, pues, es el alto costo que están teniendo la principal materia prima utilizada en la industria, que es el negro de humo. Y hoy representa no solamente un desafío desde el punto de vista comercial, sino desarrollar materiales o tratar de desarrollar materiales que nos permitan tener un comportamiento muchísimo más extendido en la vía de su uso, y desde ese punto de vista poder paliar, ¿no? Por ejemplo, estas alzas significativas de materias primas, ¿no? Voy a colocar un caso. Hoy día el negro de humo está sobre $3.50, algo que quizás nosotros hace 10 años atrás o 20 años atrás nunca pensamos que iba a estar más caro y tan alto como en comparación al caucho natural. Entonces, hoy en día creo que tenemos que ser más... tenemos que mirar de manera más pragmática la industria y promover nuevas estrategias que nos permitan cubrir todos estos desafíos que están saliendo mensualmente, ¿no?
There are a lot of challenges, and now in the market, and Sebastian is talking how the price of carbon black is being, like, how you say, $3.5 per kilo now. So this increase in the price has to besides if a challenge, is also an opportunity to create new things and to be more innovative in the creation of new products that can allow to have some products, some polymers that can use less or more, and present opportunities to overcome those challenges.
Y bueno, pues muchas gracias a todos. Quiero que sepan que no solamente México es un muy buen punto para invertir, Latinoamérica es un buen punto para invertir en caucho natural. La experiencia mexicana está dando que hablar, así como otros países hermanos que tenemos en Latinoamérica, y eso la verdad es que nos alienta a seguir empujando esta industria que, por cierto, va a tener cambios significativos en el mediano plazo. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Sebastian. Sebastian, the final remark that he's saying is that not only Mexico, but investing in natural rubber in Latin America, Mexico, Colombia, Guatemala, Brazil, is now a very good point, because we present a lot of new opportunities. There is a lot of space to grow in Latin America, and there are a lot of things that people are doing in Mexico and Guatemala and Colombia that can present a very good opportunity for the rest of the world. Thank you, Sebastián. Tenemos un par de preguntas.
Claro.
¿Existe alguna asociación de desarrollo de caucho en México?
Solamente a nivel industrial, más no tenemos se está trabajando en crear una organización que permita cubrir la demanda técnica del sector primario, en este caso las plantaciones.
There is only for the industrial part of rubber in Mexico, but they are working now on creating also an association to cover the agricultural part of rubber. And they are asking for a list of major Mexican producers of natural rubber. I think that's something that you can just say a couple of, I don't know. Perdón, Sebastián, que están preguntando por los principales productores mexicanos de caucho natural. Puedes decir, aunque sea un par.
Sí, por supuesto. Progomex y PC Látex son dos actores que están trabajando muy fuerte acá en el sector hace muchos años. Ellos están ligados principalmente con la industria llantera, ¿ya? Y básicamente la producción es de TSR10 y TSR20.
¿Cuál es el segundo? PC Látex.
PC Látex.
The major two producers are Progomex and PC Látex. You have the contact of Sebastian, so if you want more information, you can send an email to him and he will be happy to give you more information about them. So I don't know if you have any other remarks. I think that I want to thank you three for being here. I think that Latin America, as you see, has a lot of opportunities to grow. Guatemala is an example of how they began years ago with a sector that was very dedicated to some specialties, and they dedicated to latex also. And so Mexico, Brazil, I think we will talk about Brazil later, but Mexico and Colombia are also working not only in the normal kind of TSR rubber, but also in developing specialties and developing new products that can fit in the market, not only in the Latin American market, but also in the rest of the world market. We still have a lot of space to grow because we still don't cover our own consumption, but both the industrial sector and the natural rubber sector and the synthetic rubber sector, a sector that are very open to investment and to conquer the world again. So I don't know.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Maria, for that very interesting panel. Is any other points to raise for that panel? I think we have covered most of the questions raised in the floor.
Yeah, we don't have any other question.
Yeah, thank you very much, because this is what we are really looking for, fueling the rubber industry growth in Latin America. We heard very solid evidences from the 4 countries, is Colombia, Guatemala. There are plenty of opportunities for growth, and then innovation is happening, and blending of natural and synthetic rubber for product development and new materials for meeting the fuel efficiency or rolling resistance, which is needed for the market, as well as which is needed for the North American market, where in future certainly Latin America can produce and provide that to the rest of the North and South American market. Thank you very much for this very much interesting panel on fueling the rubber industry growth in Latin America. Thank you very much for all the speakers and Maria. There is a 10 minutes break we have. Thank you. We will be breaking for 10 minutes for 9:50 to 10, and we will resume by 10 p.m. Thank you all. Please feel free to stay here and chat with the friends. For those who want to have a coffee break or dinner break, you can enjoy that. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Our next and final panel discussion is on diversity and value addition. The moderator for this session is Dr. Abdul Aziz. I think it's Dr. Aziz. No need for an introduction for the rubber industry community. Everybody knows him, and he is one of the veteran in this industry. Without further ado, I am giving the floor to Dr. Aziz. Dr. Aziz, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much, Lekshmi. Ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning for those in South America, good afternoon in Africa, and good evening in our region. This panel discussion 3, the theme is on diversity and value addition. The unique thing, value addition here, we're not talking about the rubber itself, we are talking about the timber, the rubber wood. And we have 3 speakers. We will be looking also at the rubber development in Brazil, where everything begins, and also the historic failure of the early development in the Bahia region. I think there are many lessons that we learn from there. But I think it's my pleasure now to invite Santiago Esperante, who is the Executive Director of APABOR Brazil, to talk to us on the topic of the Amazon and the opportunities for new clone development. So, Diogo, you have about 15 minutes, please.
Okay, hello, Dr. Aziz. Very nice to be with you guys, although virtually. Hopefully in August, we'll be together again during IRRDB IRC in Malaysia, and hopefully in presence, not virtually, because we're getting a little bit tired of so much virtual meetings. Okay, so very good. Let me share here my screen. Let's see. Okay, here we go. Lekshmi, please tell me if my presentation is visible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So today I'm going to make a brief comment about a very sensitive subject, but a very important one. We've discussed this, the idea of this presentation, especially with Dr. Aziz. This is a theme that we've been discussing since 2016, when APABOR joined the IRRDB Directory Board. And we've been discussing this need to support the activities within the region, and obviously, as IRRDB has declared to organize finally a new expedition, to international expedition, as we already had in 1981 and 1995, but to organize that new expedition now in the Amazon for the benefit of the International Breeding Collaboration Program. So I'm going to touch some sensitive issues here, because I'm not only going to talk about the opportunities, but I'm also going to talk about some of the risks. So we have been facing a lot of problems on conserving the region, the Amazon region. That is not a novelty to anybody. It's something that you just tune into international media, and you will see various reports about this dwelling situation. So I'm also here today to express our concern and why we feel that all natural rubber industry stakeholders in the world should also be concerned about it. Brief agenda with an introduction, current status, risks and opportunities, way forward, and takeaways and conclusion. It's good that I had the opportunity to hear my colleagues from Latin America, and then I added some slides here because obviously, as I'm going to present some issues here that are not going to look very positive to my country, I also have to make this first introduction showing that obviously there are developments within the natural rubber industry here in our country that are very positive. And this is one thing that I have to point out is that natural rubber industry here in our country is not responsible for the risks that I'm going to show here. That is because basically we have marginal and almost no natural rubber production in the region of the Amazon as today. All of the data, most of the data that I'm going to show here is interesting to point out is the data from this study of Dr. Lívia Moura Souza that was presented by Dr. Carla Cristina da Silva during the IRC 2019. Dr. Carla Cristina and Dr. Lívia, they were the winners of our Paulo Gonçalves award in 2019, and as a recognition for their award, they received this invitation to take part at the IRC and the fellowship program. So there is a photo there of Dr. Carla during the IRC, and together with us is Dr. Ivo Cairo from Michelin. He was also part of the Brazilian delegation on that event. So very important that this work of Dr. Lívia and Dr. Carla was presented in 2019 because it brought us, I believe, sound data and information about these potentials and risks that we're gonna talk today. So just as a sum up, important to highlight the natural rubber production in Brazil is mainly concentrated in the southeast portion of the country. Okay, so since I started participating on the IRC meetings in 2016, I always heard about international community, some confusion about where natural rubber was being produced in Brazil. I think the most intelligible ones already knew that we had production in Bahia, but most of the people still thought that we were producing rubber in the Amazon, and that is not the case. And then in 2018, we had the chance to bring IRRDB delegation here to Brazil. We had a wonderful workshop, international workshop on good agricultural practices, and they were able to testify what we've been doing here for the past 50 years, basically producing rubber here in the southeast portion of the country. So, important to highlight, the Amazon region is marginal in natural rubber production. It doesn't amount to 1% of all natural rubber production in Brazil. So this is important to highlight because I don't want to get confused here in my speech because sometimes people tend to confuse and then think that natural rubber is expanding over the Amazon. That is not happening, okay? Natural rubber in Brazil is basically produced, I'm going to show here in the map, southeast part of the country, where basically we have the same land use that some of my colleagues presented, for instance, in Guatemala, where we basically have natural rubber plantations over cattle pasture. mainly degraded cattle pasture. That was the case here in Southeast Brazil. Nonetheless, the presentation today is not focused on the value of natural rubber production that we might find in the Amazon, but in the value of being the germoplasma cradle, as we say, of the world for Avia. And so it poses as a great opportunity for the use of this genetic diversity, as has been done through our history. I'm going to show here with data of Dr. Livia and Dr. Carla. But the current status of deforestation in the region obviously is a concern. And it has been shown. We flew Dr. Aziz from Malaysia here to Brazil to show this in his presentation in 2018. Dr. Carla went to Myanmar in 2019 to show also data of how we are in risk of losing our, as we call the in situ collections, is the germoplasm diversity that we have today in the forest. We are obviously not only as a risk, but in some cases we have already lost because there's a lot of these regions that have been already deforested and poses as a risk to not only the local populations, fauna, global warming, but also the destruction of genetic diversity of the Avia. As Dr. Aziz always remembers, there's in some cases obviously still unknown to mankind to research. So as a conclusion, I'm going to show multiple initiatives for preservation of both in and ex situ that need to be addressed and supported. So let's go into the data a little bit, just showing what has happened in the past 30 years of natural rubber production in Brazil and consumption. So we have emerged from a production of about 30,000 tons on 1990 to 222 tons on 2021. And that compared with our imports, we came from a peak of 76% of dependency on imports to a historic low of 43% last year of 2020, sorry, not last year, but 2020. Obviously that had the impact of the pandemics and all, but as in this year of 2021, obviously there was this pickup in industrial consumption. Imports have increased, but still we are at 50% dependency on imports. So that is important to show that this expansion in the last 30 years have been efficient, mostly because obviously we discovered we discovered in 1950, but we started to tap this potential in the 1990s of this region that we call the Southeast region, where we have the state of São Paulo, we have state of Minas Gerais, the state of Mato Grosso do Sul, Goiás today, the second biggest natural rubber producer already in Brazil. So this Southeast region, because it is as we call the escape zone for microcyclus, and with the use of basically Asian clones. So this region is basically planted with RIM 600. It has shown great success because, as we all know, in the period of wintering, where the trees change leaves, we have no humidity in this region. So although we have the presence of microcyclus, it is unable to impact the trees because when they are shading and changing the leaves. There is no humidity, so the microcycles can't survive. So basically, that has been one of the reasons of the success of natural rubber production in the Southeast region. Productivity has increased for the past 20 years. We have had a big increase in productivity. Obviously, that shows not only the maturity of the planted area, but also the maturity of techniques, tapping techniques, and all the things that have been shown by some of our colleagues that have been developed in the Latin America region, such as in Guatemala. They have this great example of how good agricultural practices have helped them to have one of the highest productivity rates in the region. And I think Brazil has tried to follow the same steps, not with the same effectiveness of our friends from Guatemala, but I believe there's a lot to learn from them, and we obviously have a lot of potential to increase our productivity. But still, with the work we've been done for the past 20 years, I think we have already areas, for instance, in Goiás, that have mature areas ranging with productivities of 2,500 tons of dry rubber per hectare. So this just to show that although the average in Brazil is about 1,300, we have areas of very high productivity, and I believe that in the years to come will help for the country average to increase. And obviously we have other areas such as Mato Grosso and Bahia, areas that have very low productivity rates and actually are decreasing in natural rubber production for the past years, obviously contributing to diminish the average of productivity rate within the region. So past that part of propaganda about our natural rubber industry here in Brazil, let's address the main topic here. So Amazon region, as you can see, area plantations, basically there are none within the region, just a few in the north of Mato Grosso, but there are some also in Acre, as you can see here in the left. Acre, I'm going to talk here in the end. There's some interesting things that they've been doing in the case of producing natural rubber within the natural forest, the extractivism, as we call it, native rubber there, in programs that are helping to protect the natural forest there. So this is an important topic. But in all, what I wanted to show is that heavy production in Brazil is not within the Amazon region. What we have in the Amazon region, as I was saying, is the natural dispersion of avia. So basically, to our subject today, this is very important. And I want to just make a small statement here that I'm going to talk a little bit about the things that we have today in Brazilian part of the Amazon, but obviously our friends from Colombia, also they have a great portion of Amazon in their country. And then maybe in another opportunity, my friend Fernando Garcia can talk a little bit about what they are doing there regarding the protection of the forest. I think in his presentation here, he already talked a little bit about this. And obviously we have Peru, that although is not a producer of natural rubber within the region, there is some production there, but there is a great portion, especially of avia natural dispersion within the Peruvian forest. And even there was, as I'm going to show here, a an expedition to Madre de Dios, as you can see here in this map, in the Peruvian part of the Amazon. So just to reinforce here, natural rubber production within the region of the Amazon is marginal. As you can see, if you sum here the production of the main states in the region, it doesn't add to 1% of all the natural rubber produced in Brazil. So just wanted to get that out of the way. Now let's talk about the opportunities that we've been had throughout natural rubber industry history. There's obviously been opportunities, and today, as Dr. Carla and Dr. Livia showed us in their very interesting article, we have these main ex situ collections in South America. They are all product of expeditions. Some of the expeditions that I've highlighted here: IRRDB in 1981, the Rim collection in 1995, and obviously the one historical Wickham collection that we all know from the 19th century. So these are the main institutions that today harbor these ex situ collections. We have CIRAD, Embrapa, IAC, Michelin, and UNESP. And here is the elephant in the room that I wanted to address. As Dr. Carla showed us in her article in 2019, as you guys can see for the example here, there is a big risk of these collections being destroyed by deforestation. So in this area alone, shown by Dr. Carla, about 67,000 square kilometers of rainforest cleared since 2003. And as you all know, the numbers have been increasing of deforestation within the region. So we really have to pay attention to that. And as Dr. Aziz, as I told you, that we flew him from Malaysia to Brazil to tell us that in 2018, as he was showing here in this photo for this audience of about 450 producers here in Brazil. There's not only the case of diversity, biodiversity and genetic diversity that is important in the region, but also the other 9 species of avia that are still to be properly researched, and that could produce clones with not only higher productivity, but higher quality of product, and all of those things that come in hand with breeding programs. So way forward, obviously we need to support and acknowledge the work of research institutions today in the region. So we have IAC, Embrapa, CIRAD, we have the microbiology laboratory of Unicamp, where Dr. Carla and Dr. Livia are researchers. We have the works of Michelin, and obviously other scientific support institutions such as FAPESP, CNPq, CAPES, the ESAL, the University of Agronomics in the University of São Paulo, and obviously IRRDB, as I said earlier, has throughout all this history of natural rubber been a partner of development of breeding throughout the world. And today we've been very dependent on
Diogo, we are beginning to have some problem. Diogo?
Hello?
Hello? Lekshmi, I think we may have to come.
Hello, Diogo.
Diogo.
There is some technical, we couldn't hear you well. Can you please try again?
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Maybe it's time for you to come to the concluding statements so we can raise some other issues during the Q&A time, please. Okay, Diogo?
Okay.
Okay.
So to the conclusion, way forward, we have some conservation initiatives within the region. There is a Michelin Manaus initiative called Together for the Amazon Rubber Extractivism that it's planned to have an impact on about 6.8 million hectares of conservation areas within the region. So this is one initiative that we should be paying attention. There are obviously the cooperative models that, as I was telling you about. There's this cooperative in Acre that has been shown very good results with helping and supporting natural rubber production and conservancy within the region. And for last, there is one interesting initiative, legislative initiative that are the Green Bonds Initiative here in Brazil, that basically are credit instruments to finance reforestation and maintenance of native vegetation. This is also one thing that I would suggest stakeholders to be focused on. Well, as a takeaway, Amazon, great opportunity of in situ germoplasma diversity collection. Such opportunity today is at risk. As a conclusion, there are multiple initiatives that need to be supported and complemented within the region to mitigate this risk, and as I was saying, by all industry stakeholders, because obviously it is not something that only Brazilian natural rubber industry should be worried about, but the whole natural rubber industry, because we're talking about the germoplasm diversity of Avia as a whole. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Diogo, for taking us through the development, encouraging development of the rubber industry in Brazil, and with all the parties getting involved, and you have shown us that there is encouraging success, especially in the Southeast region. And we are very encouraged to know that even the productivity, having clones that can produce 2,500 kilogram per year per hectare, is very encouraging indeed. So maybe now we'll move to the next presenter, the rubber wood, a value-added product for producers, the case for Malaysia. Dr. Jalaluddin, he has been a university lecturer for many, many years, and then he was appointed as the Director General of Malaysian Timber Industry Board. So he has been instrumental in promoting the use of rubber wood, especially for producing high-value furniture. So, Dr. Jalaluddin, please.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Good morning, afternoon, and good evening to all the participants. First of all, thank you very much, Dr. Aziz, and also Dr. Lekshmi for having me on board and to present this on this rubber wood, which I believe it is a little bit different from the rubber that we have been discussing. However, this is rubber wood is something that some producers or plantation take it as a byproduct. However, in Malaysia, we don't take it as a byproduct. We have, in fact, for the past 20, we developed 25, 30 years that we have developed this rubber wood into high value-added furniture, fueling our furniture industry that make us the 8th largest producer of furniture in the world. 80% of our furniture are manufactured from rubber wood. So I think this is a very important one, and we'll go through this presentation, and I would welcome any sort of response or questions to my ability. Next.
Please give me a verbal cue. Thank you.
Yeah. In Malaysia, we have the total area of 1.07 million hectare. And again, as many of the producers in Latin America, Africa, or even in Asia, we are basically dominated by the smallholders. And plantation, we used to have large one, but now it is a decreasing trend. And for the normal latex, we are, I think as you are familiar, 500 to 500 trees per hectare. However, for our rubber forest, which we have focused on the producing of the rubber tree for the timber, it is a 15-year cycle instead of 25 years. And practically, we are talking about 1 hectare, around 500 trees. And basically, we can generate 250 meter cube of timber per hectare. And if we are based on 1.07 million, then we can see that that is we can produce almost 267 million meter cube of timber from rubber tree if we were to harvest in one go. Next. I would like to bring some of the probably I could say some success story from our government public-private partnership program, whereby the public comes from the government, where we provide low interest rate, about 3% for the private sector, and the private sector will borrow, apply for the loan, and once everything is in place, it's approved, and the rest of the year in terms of operation on the plantation will be done by the private sector. But the government controls the funding, and also to ensure that our rubber forest is being grown in an area whereby you will not have some controversies in terms of area of plantation. And the amount of budget that was initially approved was 1.04 billion Malaysian ringgit, equivalent to 250 million US dollars, and it's 15 years program. And we have 77 agreement based on 65 companies that applied. Mind you that we have this forest plantation program is not just purely for rubber tree, not for rubber, but it has 8 other species, including rubber, is 9 species. However, the borrower has the liberty to choose which species among the 9 that is been approved by the government. And fortunately to say that almost 70% of the borrower choose rubber tree as their crop for their plantation. On that note, in 15 years, we have managed to plant 124,766 hectares of new areas of rubber forest. And this is quite an interesting one, because most of the applicants are not smallholders. They are slightly larger plantation of more than 100 hectares per borrower. Next. These are the species which I mentioned earlier, and you can see that the Hevea brasiliensis we have also determined they can only plant 6 verified clones to ensure that the trees are TLC, timber latex clone, rather than the normal latex production for timber. The rest we have acacia mendium. We have about 25% of the area being planted with that, and we have a little bit of mahogany and some Parra falcateria, but the rest are very nominal compared to the rubber, acacia, and also this Parra. Next. I would like to say that Malaysia is quite a major timber and timber products exporting country. And we have, throughout the year, we export roughly about 5 billion USD of in forest and forest product. I want to highlight that the biggest export component of Malaysia timber and timber product industry is the wooden furniture, which comprise almost 46% of the total export. And most of our export, the major markets are US, Japan, Australia, UK, the EUs, and South Korea, and these are developed countries. And I can say that 80% of our furniture that we export are made from rubber wood. And that rubber wood is basically, just now Diogo Esperante mentioned about 9 species of Hevea. This is basically Hevea brasiliensis with the different clones. Next. And this is where our industries are located. And also basically the breakdown of what we produce. Furniture is high value added products. We have sawmill producing sawn timber. We have moldings. And then we have plywood. We do have rubber, veneer, and plywood production. Of course, you have KD processing, and we have particle board. The wood composite, which comprise of particle board, MDF in Malaysia, 90% of the material used are from Hevea brasiliensis. So this is how important rubber wood is to the Malaysian rubber timber industry. Next. And Malaysia also is a global player. We can see that we are the 4th rank producer of plywood in the world. We have sawn timber number 9, production of veneer number 15, wooden frame, and furniture we are number 8, and so on. So this reflects that timber and timber product in Malaysia is a very important to our economy, and it also involves more than 250,000 workers involved in this industry. Next. I just like to have the value added. This indicate how the process of from raw material, the logs that we have. Maybe some of you are quite familiar. From we have the timber here, and from the timber we convert that into primary processing, sawn timber, logs, sawn timber. From sawn timber, then we can further develop into furniture, process into furniture, or we can produce it another high value added product in wood moldings and joinery. And to some of we don't waste the material, we go for zero waste. Then we have with those timber which are small, we convert that into wood chips, and that will converted later into particle board, MDF, and later on processed also into furniture and other products. Next. Rubber furniture in Malaysia. Okay. As I mentioned, that the focus of our program is very much integrated. On the forestry side, we have, as I say, 1.07 million hectare. That is one that produces latex. The one with a forest, rubber wood forest, that is the Malaysian timber board industry that we handle, comprised of 130,000 hectare, and it is increasing actually. And from that, the conversion of this into composite, and then later on, you manufacture into high value added products, furniture. And this is another area that we are looking into, that is engineered wood products based on timber engineering. And this rubber wood, though it is not widely used as per se now, but it is, again, we are assessing its properties so that we can develop further timber engineering into building construction. I think we'll go through towards the later part. Next. And this is where, as I mentioned earlier, we are not happy with just producing furniture, OEM, or original equipment manufacturing, but we are going towards ODM, own design manufacturing. In 2007, 33% of our export is based on ODM. ODM has a slightly higher value compared to OEM. Yeah? And then 2013, we have increased to 53%, and 2020, we are expected to have about 70% of our projection. Next. And this is where the furniture that we have, we're going towards ODM, we have to really develop some design concept. And again, prototyping before we, and MTIB has been working very closely with the industry so that the furniture design can be further enhanced. As you know, design is very much things like the Italian and the European furniture manufacturing fetch a very, very good price in the international market. So I think we are going into that direction. And again, eventually, we would like to have branding and cataloging of this design. Next. And this is MTIB seriousness in trying to promote design with assistance or collaboration from the industry, and we build up this our own showroom in Kuala Lumpur. Next. And we participated in I-Saloni, Milan, the world's largest design furniture exhibition globally. It is held every year. So MTIB participated, and it is not easy to enter this I-Saloni. You have to reach a certain level of design capability before they accept you. And we have been doing this since 2013. Next. And we also have some program whereby we invite designers, foreign designers like from Italy, Belgium, Australia, and even Korea and Japan to participate. And we call them in, and we collaborate closely with the furniture manufacturer. And we have some very good response from the local furniture manufacturer. And most of them, 80% of their products are based on rubber wood. Next. Yeah, somewhat prototypes. Next. Yeah, next. Besides that, to show that we are really keen to modernize our furniture manufacturing sector, we have the Malaysian government, through federal and state government, work collaboratively to establish this, what we call as more furniture park in the southern part of Peninsular Malaysia, whereby we have allocated more than 890 acres of land for the establishment of furniture, modern one with focus on export oriented, more of mechanical and some robotics and also automation. And we have a lot of incentive that the government is allowing them, giving them for the next 10 years. So this is part of the impetus to modernize our industry so that we are not relying more on the capital intensive process. So we are going to do more with automation and robotics and high quality furniture and high precision. Next. And this is where the next product that we have developed is this glue laminated timber, whereby it is not a relatively new product, but first introduced in 1893 in Switzerland and in Forest Product Lab in Madison, US. In 1934, they really uptake it very slightly. And later on, of recent, the last 5-10 years, they have this glue laminated and load bearing structure has taken a lot of attention and interest in building up mid-rise and high-rise building. Next. And this before you use this timber for this structured building, we have to look at the properties. Next. Rubber wood is in that category, and currently most of the glue lamp for high-rise building are made from softwood, that spruce, basically pine and fir. Next. And this is where the manufacturing is well established. Glue lamp. Next. And also the design is very important, where the timber, cement, and concrete, and also metal, where they have to come together to build up load-bearing structure. This is the critical part, actually, the design, without which we'll have some problems. Next. And this is where in the 90s, some building in Austria, they also developed what another thing called the CLT, cross-laminated timber. Again, they use spruce, fir, and pine. And rubber wood, as I mentioned earlier, is in this category. In terms of properties, in terms of strength, it is slightly higher and higher density compared to those softwood species. Next. And this well developed, the process is really well established. Next. And the structure also, the IBS now that's the trend nowadays. IBS, industrialized building system. It's more like prefabricated. The components are modular in nature. They are built in a factory and they are assembled in the field. And we can see that one floor, they built one floor, the structure for only a day per floor. You know? So I think this is quite an interesting development indeed. Next. Next. And this is where in Malaysia, we are not just saying it, but we have already constructed our own Malaysian Timber Industry Board building in Johor, whereby we use timber for structure. But this is not rubber wood. Rubber wood is small component, but the majority we use at the moment is more on the tropical hardwood like crewing, Dryobalanops, Aromatica, and so on. Next. And this is part of the building, which I think it managed to really spearhead the construction in Malaysia using glulam and load-bearing structure using timber as a base material. Next. Completed in 2001. And also in Milan, this structure here is from glulam, Malaysian timber wood called crewing, Dipterocarpus species. And this is a world exhibition in Milan when we won the 3rd place for the best pavilion during that. If not mistaken, 79 countries participated in that world exhibition in Milan 2015. Next. And this again, the longest span is more than 131 feet. Probably is more than 30 meters long. It's already happening in Malaysia, and more will be coming up. Okay, next. And also we developed some restaurant from this structure. Next. And I can say among the tallest building now is already being constructed using purely timber now is in the Brock's Common in Vancouver, University of British Columbia. It's 18-story high. It's all, I think it's all spruce, made of spruce. Next. And this is how they built the thing. They use a combination of a glulam, parallel strand lumber, and also the cross-laminated timber. Next, to build the high-rise building. So again, on the drawing board, we can see some tall building on the drawing board in Sweden, Stockholm. Next. And one very ambitious building, Oakwood Tower in London, also on the drawing board. And next. And this is one in Tokyo. So again, it's all timber. So again, with all this climate change and carbon sort of near, I feel that timber is on the high upward trajectory. So this is where Hevea brasiliensis and all the Hevea species, the 9 species that have been mentioned earlier, I think have a tremendous potential for future construction. Next. I think in summary, I would like to say that in Malaysia, we have quite a successful having this timber latex clone, and also we have this building of furniture, very track record. Next. And finally, I believe that the construction industry is there for us to really harvest our heavier wood or rubber wood for our future construction in value. For that, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jalaluddin. I think we have questions that we'll take care after the last presentation. So at least you have highlighted the importance of rubber wood. So it's not just rubber, but the rubber wood, not only in the furniture, but also in the construction industry in the future, engineering applications. So Dr. Ramli, I think we are now looking at the diversity, heavier breeding, widening of the heavier genetic base to meet future challenges. Please, Dr. Ramli. Just before that, I'll just introduce Dr. Ramli. He has been involved in 2 expeditions, a very prominent prime breeder, and he's also the IRRDB fellow. So please, Dr. Ramli.
Ladies and gentlemen, greetings from Malaysia. I am Ramli Othman, Fellow International Rubber Research and Development Board. I'm going to talk on hevia breeding, widening of the hevia genetic base to meet future challenges. The rubber plants belongs to the family Euphobiaceae. There are 10 hevia species, namely Hevia brasiliensis, which is the commercialized species. Others are Hevia passiflora, Hevia camaguana, Hevia nitida, Hevia spruciana, Hevia rigidifolia, Hevia benthamiana, Hevia ghanensis, Hevia microphylla, and Hevia comporum. The Hevia species grows wild in the Amazon basin in Brazil as the center of diversity. Different species prefer varying habitats. They're also growing naturally in the Amazon basin of the neighboring countries, such as Bolivia, Colombia, Ecuador, French Guiana, Peru, Suriname, and Venezuela. Let's look at the environment in Amazon. It is flat land between equator and 50 degrees south. Altitudes not exceeding 200 meters. Wet equatorial climate, 25 to 28 degrees centigrade, with abundant rainfall more than 2,000 millimeters per year. Rubber was introduced to Malaya and East by the British. Henry Wickham, a British trader, collected some 70,000 rubber seeds in a small area in the Amazon jungle at the confluence of the rivers Tapajós and Amazon, near the town of Santarém, Brazil, in 1876. The seeds were shipped to Kew Garden in England, and about 2,000 seeds germinated. The seedlings then were shipped to Ceylon or Sri Lanka, and some were planted in the botanical garden. 22 seedlings were dispatched to Singapore, and 9 were planted in Kuala Kangsar, Malaya in 1877. One of the trees is still growing happily and is the oldest planted rubber tree in the world. It's about 145 years old. The Wickham seedlings, which were genetically Hevia brasiliensis, gave rise to the birth of precocious rubber clones and growth of the plantation rubber industry in Malaysia, and subsequently throughout the world. The Rubber Research Institute of Malaysia, RIM, rubber breeding program has successfully increased the rubber yield from 400 kg per hectare per year for the unselected seedlings to about 3,000 kg per hectare per year for the modern clones. The breeders have lots of challenges to breed a multi-purpose rubber tree. Among the objectives are high latex yield, high timber yield, good growth vigor, resistant to leaf diseases, resistant to wind damage, good girth increment on tapping, good bud thickness, tolerance to tree dryness, acceptable latex and rubber properties, response to chemical stimulation, good cedar, and cold tolerance. Rubber has mainly planted in the traditional rubber areas, with the latitude 10 degrees north or south of equator. Rainfall 2,000 to 4,000 millimeters per year. Mean annual temperature about 28 degrees centigrade, and with 12 hours of daytime. Now we have seen rubber being planted away from the traditional areas, that is greater than 10 degrees north or south of the equator, with suboptimal environments such as drought, low temperature, high altitude, disease, and strong winds. The non-traditional areas planted with rubber in the 18 degrees to 24 degrees north are India Northeast, Vietnam Highlands and Coastal, South China, Thailand Northeast, and Bangladesh. And those in the 20 degrees to 22 degrees south is the Brazil Southern Plateau, Sao Paulo. Rubber is in fact robust and versatile. We need to plant the right clone at the right environment. The narrowness of heavier genetic base is widely discussed by plant breeders at various forums, both national and international. It is a major obstacle towards improving the rubber yield and other important characters. Hence, there is a need for an extensive program to continuously and systematically collect wild heavier materials from their origin in South America. This led to a joint expedition by the International Rubber Research and Development Board, member countries, and the Brazilian government in 1981 to collect wild germplasm seeds and budwood in 3 western states of Brazil, namely Acre, Rondônia, and Mato Grosso. Just to show you the 1981 germplasm field in Malaysia. This for conservation, evaluation, utilization, and for redistribution to other RDB member countries. In 1995, Rubber Research Institute of Malaysia and Brazil, Embrapa, conducted an expedition to the Amazon to collect wild hevea seeds. The areas of collection include Tabatinga, Benjamin Constant, Atalia do Norte, Sao Paulo do Olivencia. These areas are near the border with Peru and Colombia. RDB has proposed a new expedition to Peru. This is where we're heading, the upper Amazon of Peru. The objective is to collect seeds of various hevea species from the Amazon Peru with the purpose of increasing hevea genetic pool in the RDB member countries. towards enhancing Hevia genetic improvement. The justification for the expedition: first, further progress in Hevia breeding for better yields for both latex and timber can be achieved through the widening of the narrow genetic base. There is evidence that genes for disease resistance and other desirable traits, such as tolerance to low temperature, may be found in the Hevia species in Peru. The areas of prospection in Peru include Iquitos, La Sitia, and Rio Putumayo, Madre de Dios around Puerto Maldonado, San Juan de Oro near the border of Bolivia, north of Pucallpa along Rio Ucayali, Torche Nuevo, which is situated on the northwest of Tingo Maria, San Ramon and Puerto Bermudez, which is south of Tingo Maria. And finally, the area west of Rio Yurimaguas. We expect to collect seeds of other species besides Hevia brasilensis, such as Hevia spruciana, Hevia rigidifolia, Hevia benthamiana, Hevia guinensis, Hevia passiflora, and Hevia nitida. These seeds can be utilized in the breeding program, such as direct use, hybridization, broadening of the Hevia genetic base. Thank you. Hevia breeding is a process, no ending and no beginning.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ramli. That is giving the possibility of the IRRDB carrying out the expedition into Peru subject to the agreement of the government of Peru or the neighboring countries. And I would like to also mention that we had the opportunity to meet with the late Professor Schultes, who informed us that he has his collection in Peru, so which we can request to collect from the Peruvian authorities. So we have a few questions which I can see that from Dr. Jacob Matthew, 2 questions, and we have one from Santosh Kumar. I think that one, the Dr. Jacob Matthews to Diogo, he's asking which is being used by local rubber farmers. I think you have explained that, isn't it? Do you have any highly promising locally selected rubber variety? I think it's talking about clones.
Yes. Currently, we have both the partnership of Syrah Michelin and IAC testing multiple variety of clones here in the region. IAC, as you all know, have the 400 and 500 series. They are both very prominent. They're even developing already new clones. We have discussed in the previous years a project, a partnership with all these institutes to bring and test these clones in areas here in São Paulo. So I do believe that we have in the region today very prominent clones developed by all these institutions. Obviously, I have to highlight the work of Embrapa that recently have published a study about clones in the region of Goiás, very interesting also. So I believe there is, from all these institutions here, there have been a lot of work and investment in the past years, and we are now to seize those opportunities in the next years to come of rubber expansion here in the country.
Yeah, thank you very much. Dr. Jacob Matthew has another question to Dr. Jalaluddin. Maybe you can respond to that in brief, Dr. Jalaluddin.
This is about the technological development, isn't it? Hello?
Yes. It's asking whether there's possibility of technology sharing, collaboration, joint venture.
Yes.
I think the answer is yes, isn't it?
I think this is all possible. And what we are doing also, we are trying to promote the use of rubber wood in various uses, in particular furniture. We are very good. We established quite a standard sort of processing in the sense that rubber wood needs I can get rid of the thing behind me. Needs a lot of preservative treatment prior to the KD and also preservative, and also the manufacturing of the furniture itself. Again, this is something that we are quite very familiar with. Besides that, now a lot of work now we are trying to focus also on the use of glulam, developing, working closely with universities in a lab, so that glulam and also probably the CLT too, in the future, we will have a sort of the material can be further developed into building construction, especially the IBS model that I have mentioned earlier. Yeah. So again, on that note, the answer is yes.
So we have one more question, which I think you can respond very quickly, Dr. Jalaluddin, regarding the cycle of 15 to 16 years, which means we do tap for 8 years. Mr. Santosh Kumar wants to know the clones in your rubber forest, please.
Practically, at the moment, it's basically Hevia brasiliensis.
Right.
And once it is matured, we are talking about 15 years and above. It is the diameter breast height. That's how we measure the size of the tree. Is most likely will be 25 to 30 cm. However, I believe that if we can develop further from the other 9 species, I'm sure we can develop trees with high latex, at the same time bigger trees. Bigger trees means we can go to 45, 50 centimeter in terms of diameter. So this is where breeding program is very crucial. It's not just for the latex, but also once the tree is harvested, when once the latex has been more or less dried up, then we can use the wood itself for further processing.
Can you name a few of the clones that you are recommending people to grow in the rubber forest now? Latex timber clones, timber latex clones.
TLC, this is all from the Malaysian Rubber Board. It is the 3000 series. It's a very the 3000 series, and also some 2020 and 2025 and Perang Besar. So these are the selected 6 clones from the so many clones developed by MRB. We are very particular to show to ensure that once the tree the latex has been there, after 15 years, we have minimum about 30 cm also diameter. The other thing is on the tapping on the latex for the rubber wood forest. We normally tap from 5 to 15 years, meaning that 8 to 10 years that we can tap for the latex, and then we harvest and we start to grow. And this is why I believe that tree breeding is very, very essential, not only for the clones, but also for other species. At the same time, we try to focus also on timber. And as mentioned by one speaker from Guatemala, they have only 116,000 hectares of rubber tree, and they have FSC certified Forest Stewardship Council. This is important for future trade in timber, whereby people want legality and sustainability process in the plantation itself. And this is
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr.
Yes.
Dr. Aziz. We may have to wrap up this session and move to the concluding one.
Anyway, thank you very much to all the speakers. I think it's taken us through the development of rubber in Brazil, and then the interesting presentation by Dr. Jalaluddin on the utilization of the rubber wood for furniture and also for construction. And then Dr. Ramli has highlighted the possibility of carrying out an expedition, possibly his third expedition. He has been involved in the previous 2 expeditions to Peru to actually excite the plant breeders and also the molecular biologists with the injection of the germplasm. So thank you very much to all the 3 speakers. Okay, back to you, Lekshmi.
Thank you very much, Dr. Aziz, Dr. Ramli, Dr. Jalaluddin, and Diogo for this very interesting session. I know it's we should have discussed a lot if you have more time, but it is a bit late now. We have to wrap up today's event. It was I feel it was a very successful event. We heard about the potential opportunity at the beginning and the fueling of the Latin American industry. That was the topic where everybody was looking forward to hear from the Latin American major players in the region. And then looking at the diversity and value addition, it's yes, there are opportunities for Latin American upcoming players to look into. Yes, latex timber clone is a potential area they can look into. Yes, Diogo has more deeply covered many topics on that. Dr. Jalaluddin already mentioned, Jamli already mentioned on the importance of the Amazon focused tree breeding and need for collection of the Amazon wild seeds and to keep that tradition of going forward with the wild varieties, especially in the sustainability context. That is very important. So I like to thank all the speakers of this today's side event, and once again all the speakers and all the panelists. I am giving this back to Salvatore, Dr. Aziz and Maria for the concluding session.
Thank you, Lekshmi. I think it has been a very interesting event, this one, and I hope that all the participants could get a flavor of the potential of rubber in Latin America. And certainly, as it already has come out during the 2 days of the World Rubber Summit, we have some clear paths to follow. That is about cooperation first among different stakeholders and organizations is very important. Technology innovation is another aspect that we have to push forward, and I would like not to forget the research and development activities on which IRRDB would like to contribute in partnership, of course, with IRRDB. This year we have done a lot of activities together, and this for the benefit of the whole rubber industry. I think it's very important, and I'm sure that IRRDB also in the future will bring forward this collaboration with IRRDB, because IRRDB is involved in a lot of important activities, and we certainly support those activities. So I would like to thank Dr. Aziz to be here today, to have been in the World Rubber Summit yesterday, and in Korea as well, in Seoul with the side event. So we have done a lot of things. And also, I am glad to learn that my country, Italy, is helping the Malaysian rubber wood sector to develop. So that's very interesting. And of course, I have to thank Maria Piña of SLTC and our friend Diogo Esperante from Brazil for all the efforts to put together all the speakers and promoting this event. It has been absolutely amazing, and thank you very much for all your effort. And finally, let me thank also my staff, because we have been busy for 3 days, and we put a lot of effort in this World Rubber Summit, making sure that is a successful event. So I would like to thank Lekshmi, Ashley, Jianfeng, and Adeline that is not here, but she has done some great work behind the scene. So really, I would like to thank everyone for this. And now I leave the floor to Maria Piña for if she wants to say something.
Oh no, thank you. I'm so grateful for your invitation, and I think this is the first time we do this collaboration. We as SLTC with SRG, and we are very happy. And it was a great event. And I know that you say 3 days, but I know that you were working for months on this event, and helping us also to be here and to have everything prepared. So I'm very grateful, and congratulations for this great event. Thank you.
Thanks. Aziz?
Yes. Thank you very much for the opportunity. First, I like to highlight the importance of cooperation, because I mentioned the historic failure of rubber establishment in Brazil, mainly due to the disease, South American leaf blight. And we, the Rubber Research Institute, spent 17 years working in the University of Trinidad to understand this fungus. Then finally, we had a collaboration with the Brazilian in the SEPLAC, the Cocoa Research Institute, where we provide fellowship for member countries to send their pathologists and quarantine officers to understand the disease of South American leaf blight. And we are happy to note that South American leaf blight is no more a threat to the Brazilian rubber industry especially. And what is important is we also had the cooperation of clone exchange by Michelin and Sirat, where they develop clones which are resistant to SAP in the Bahia region, and these have been made available to the IRRDB member countries. So I think this is a very good example of the cooperation that we have. And I would like, on behalf of all the IRRDB directors and board members, to congratulate the IRSG, Mr. Salvatore, for all the effort you and your team have done. And I think this cooperation is becoming to be very interesting now, and very exciting future through the cooperation of these organizations, especially the IRSG, IRRDB, even the NRPC can come on board. And on behalf of the directors and board, we would like to congratulate you for the successful hosting of the World Rubber Summit and this side event, where the IRRDB is also a party to it. And this brings forth a very successful, planning of the discussion we had earlier to see how to handle this thing and what sort of topics will be suitable. Thank you very much for the opportunity to cooperate.
Thank you, Aziz. And of course, we are waiting an invitation to go to Peru with you.
Yeah.
Okay, so I would like to close this side event. It's a bit late here in Asia, and but we are enjoying this very much. So okay, thank you once again, and also we are going to make this the recording of this webinar available. So everyone that might be interested to the Latin America rubber industry should access and watch again if they wish to do so. So thank you so much. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
Good
you.
night, good night, and good day.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Good night.